works. Okay, we are being recorded. All right, do you do the intro? I do the intro.
We'll go back and forth. Like, hey, this is Rob Messick and
Marc Leone.
we are trying to podcast this week.
We're trying. We're desperately trying. So this is the what do you call this is the Awestruck podcast.
Comics Up.
Comics Up, episode 1. EOSO1 theme Comics Up.
We've lost everyone.
Probably. So I think so. Your main philosophy, with the toxic fandom, everything, we feel that we still love the medium of comic books, but a lot of the news is just laced with like cynicism, just this blanket of rough cynicism. Be like, you believe this? We're still in this is still happening. Comics are still happening. Yeah, they're still happening. So it's a very odd thing, and we talk about it every week. We don't know why people aren't happy about it. They're reporting on it. They're making money on it, journalism wise, but they still slam it. It's very confusing.
It's very easy to be cynical. We were raised in the 90s, which is all about sarcasm. So we want to approach this in an upbeat way, in a fun way. I mean, we'll still have sarcasm. We can't stop it. It's in our blood. It's in our young blood or old blood now.
It's in our young blood. It's in our old blood.
It is. So yeah, so let's approach it in a different way, and we can show people that you can be positive and not make money, and that's what we're about.
That's what we're all about: being positive and not making money. There we go. There's our two philosophies in life. We're doing pretty well at it. So we've been trying to do this we tried to clock this before the show, pre-show talk, and we figured it was at least 10 years. And when was that? That was
after your first divorce.
Yeah, we don't have to count them. We're all right. We're fine.
It's a good way to gauge it.
Yeah. Because where else do you escape to? But Krypton. Or we just have to escape, and that's the best thing. We can't control a lot of stuff, but we can control, and we can just take a little break, and then fly off with Buck Rogers.
Who even owns Buck Rogers anymore? Isn't that public domain?
It might be.
Within a year or two?
Go buy it. Yeah, we might be able to go buy it. Maybe.
We don't need to buy it. We just wait. Wait till we're older.
Yeah, I guess everything will eventually be, that's really weird. I think one of the saddest things you've ever said to me in my life, and you said it just kind of as a brief thing, you probably don't remember this. You said, it's going to be really hard because when we die, there's going to be comic books that are published after us, and we're not going to be able to read those. And I was sad for like a week. You said that, and I was like, oh my God. So I'm not going to be able to read the ongoing adventures of X. You know what I mean?
There will be.
Oh my God.
Some kid will be writing Superman, and I'll be like, I can't read it.
No.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, that's no good. That's no good. So we want to kick off. We're going to try and do segments. We're going to try and form this into how we have almost a daily conversation when you're at work and I'm on a break or whatever. So we're gonna talk about the news. Here's the news of the week. Biggest news of the week and we just mentioned earlier, Youngblood is back after 7 years.
7 years. Yeah, that's a big deal. Like, I think comics has really missed Youngblood. Youngblood was something special, especially when it was created and published in 1992. So we're talking about 33 years ago, which is crazy. Because when you and I got into comics in the late 80s, Marvel had only been around 25 years.
Right.
And we were like, that's forever ago.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, Marvel had the border around it with all the characters. They were fun. They were fun to collect.
Is that the first? Is that the first like uniform? Because I know this month the DC All In, they're doing a uniform like cover scheme basically. I guess that is right. That's probably the most. It wasn't even. Yeah. I guess it was because it did have a theme in the middle. You're like, just put a big character's head in the middle because there's no team shot. Just like there's a guy. That's it. Here's guy, girl. That's it.
That was a smart move because fans were like, I want them all. And Marvel's like,
Yeah. But there was some who was on the X-Men one? Is that just Wolverine?
Cyclops.
That's right.
No,
that's right.
Cyclops was on X Factor, right? Was Wolverine on X-Men?
I don't remember.
Yikes.
The X-Men one. Oh boy. We're showing
we already look like
our
amateurs.
bad knowledge. I know, right?
Start over.
No good. Yeah. And then Cloak was just Cloak, no dagger. No dagger on that. Men.
No.
But I guess what I never understood is a couple years ago that you mentioned that, like, I was like, why isn't there a Youngblood? I think we talked about it, and then you said that, oh well, someone that had the rights here or there, and it just kind of went away. Oh boy, sorry.
That's fine. It's a welcome
I guess,
distraction.
yeah, I guess if you could talk about that while I try to calm my dog down.
Yeah. Well, you know, when Liefeld and his friends wanted to start Image, they had went to Scott Rosenberg, who was a friend of Liefeld, who owned Malibu Comics in the 80s, publisher of X Mutants and what else did he have? Dinosaurs for Hire. So they decided to do Image through Scott Rosenberg's Malibu Comics. Fast forward to the late 90s when Liefeld decided to make Awesome Comics. He had Scott Rosenberg as one of the investors, along with another investor named John Hyde. So when one of the investors pulled out, Liefeld split up the properties rather than pay these guys, I guess, everything back. And Scott Rosenberg ended up with Youngblood and Supreme and Newman and a few others. But during that time, Liefeld and him had a handshake agreement where Liefeld was the publisher. He was the guy for all his Extreme characters. And I guess it was 2017, Scott Rosenberg formed a company, I think called Rip Media, who then he sold Youngblood to his own company. And then his company went behind his back and licensed the characters to Andrew Rev, owner of Kimiko, from another 1980s comic book company, and kind of pulled the rug out from under Rob. So, you know, and that guy wanted Rob to participate, and Rob's like, I'm not publishing them. What am I going to do? You know, I'm not going to help you make money.
Right.
And so anyway, so this guy went on to try to publish the book. He hired artists, writers. They were working on material, and none of it happened. And none of the people got paid. And now, 7 years later, Liefeld and Scott, I guess, worked out a deal. And now we're getting Youngblood back. I think it's going to come out probably in April of 2025, which is the 33rd anniversary of Youngblood.
Right. Well, I know he's basically Liefeld's finishing all his commitments in Marvel, deciding to that's it. He's doing one finale of the Deadpool team up, which has, you know, my boy Chris Starr in it, Dragon Lord.
Liefeld drawing Chris Starr is beautiful.
Yeah, that's so
he's
fun.
got something about 80s characters because he drew those Thundercats comics for Dynamic Forces.
Right.
And those covers look great.
Yeah.
You know what we need next? Sectars.
I don't know. You know, I took apart my collection earlier in the year, and I sold Sectars like 1 to 7. I got like $35 for it. It was so crazy how much money I got for that thing.
Dude, $5 an issue for Sectars? You win.
I know I didn't pay more than $1. No way. And they were beat up. They were like, it doesn't matter, but it was like a complete, I think it was Sectars, but that's a good little run. Steve Geiger art, like it's good. It's a good little run. I think Texiera might have did some of the earlier issues. Those are nuts, but Chris Starr is a good run. I don't know if they lost the rights or whatever, because that was like 11 issues. Chris Starr was not even 12. They couldn't even pull off 12.
I feel like Marvel created Chris Starr and then gotten a deal with Remco to actually make the toys.
Yeah. Remco basically made almost like knockoff He-Man toys. Like they look like He-Man toys because that was Warlord.
It was Warlord. Yeah. You remember getting Warlord toys and like, oh, these things are rip-off He-Man. What a rip-off of He-Man. Not knowing that Warlord had been around for like 15 years, being published by DC.
Yeah, they're hard to get now. Like they're not easy. I figured they would be kind of a couple years ago. I was thinking about just getting a bunch of toys that I had when I was a kid, like, you know, Warlords and Migos, and no, it's not very, very expensive. So, but I guess
the knockoffs are expensive.
Yeah, so I guess it'll be coming out. So just to go back to Youngblood, so that's essentially going to go. And now, but what's his doing Last Blood, which I guess is still continuity. Last Blood he's selling on his Whatnot, right? That's the only way you can get that.
Yeah, the only way to get that is go to Whatnot and sign up. And yeah, he sold Last Blood 1, I think, in January. And I got a copy, and it was really fun. He didn't have the rights to Youngblood, so he created like an echo of them, you know? So it's like instead of Shaft, the Arrow guy, you have Bo, the Arrow guy. And it's really good. He did a really good job with that comic. Really entertaining, really Like it's really well
Yeah, I
thought
know you
out.
showed me some art from it. It looked crazy good. Yeah. I
And
love his
Last
is
Blood,
that the same colorist as the Deadpool?
I'd have to check,
Is that
but I
right?
feel like it should be. Is it I think I don't know if it's Juan Rodriguez or not offhand, but he knows how to choose colorists. Like he has a real eye
He's
for
always
that.
had
Like
that. Yeah, yeah, Kiko a long time ago, and that was the big one. That was one.
he knew the right guys to hire to create modern coloring. But yeah, Kiko, Chris Lichtner, I guess the originator of Liquid Colors.
Yeah,
You
Liquid,
know, they were
right.
the biggest. They were the biggest guys in the '90s.
Yeah. Well, even Brian Murray, I guess he started as an artist doing Young All Stars for DC, but then he did some coloring. He colored X Force,
Yeah,
right? Didn't he color like one or two
X
issues
Force.
of X Force?
He did the infamous X Force 4.
Right.
It's for the
Right.
the
Right.
really oddball colors. You know,
Right. Right. Right.
you
I
you
like that.
you've heard that. You ever heard that story?
I don't know.
Like
I'm not sure.
he colored under Neil Adams' way of coloring, and they had certain numbers for certain colors. So when he turned that book into Marvel, say, here's the coloring files, just go by these numbers. Well, Marvel's numbers were different than Neil Adams' continuity numbers. So that's why the colors look weird. That's why there's like oranges and purples and greens. And to us, we're just like, this is so neat. It's very, you know, Art
Yeah, I
Deco
like.
or art,
Well, even
it's
that he
very
had.
neat.
Yeah, I mean, I have the Marvel Age X Force One preview, which has just temp colors. It's not Brad Vencato who did the book, and I want to say it
Mhm.
was even. So that's really fun to look at too. Look at the differences. But yeah, he's always had. I mean, I thought Brad Vencato did a couple issues. Who was an artist too. He was pretty good, So it was. There's always been. But even McFarlane colored an issue. I mean, that was fun, And I think that when Liefeld did a different style for Shadowhawk Zero, that was Kiko on that. I mean, just playing around with the
Yeah.
styles themselves was kind of fun back then. Jim Lee doing his Deathblow style. McFarlane is like, I'm going to letter a book. I'm going to color the one book. Like, I mean, in the middle of a story, he's like, I'm just going to color this. It's like, what? Like, that's just not a thing that
It's,
is done
it's
at all.
fun to do something different when you're doing the same job every day, just pencil, pencil, pencil. Well, let me try inking. Now I'm inking. Let me try. Can I place the word balloons? Can I try the letter? Coloring.
Yeah. And they didn't have time. They had to get it out so you could see the different mistakes. You can see like the bubbles were weird, but it's like whatever. You know what I mean? Just put it out. So,
At
but
one point, you remember Eric Larson on Savage Dragon tried to do everything himself. He was writing
just
it,
letter,
penciling it,
yeah,
inking it, lettering, coloring. His coloring wasn't bad, but his lettering wasn't real good.
right,
He
right.
tried.
Well, he had a
He
lot
tried.
of, he had Chris on forever, right?
And you
So
know what? He was publisher at that time, so he's publishing Image Comics and trying to do everything for Savage Dragon.
that's
That's just a
crazy.
workload that was not. I guess he couldn't do it. So luckily he stopped. He stopped lettering and coloring. He still messes
Yeah,
around with it though, and that's what. Do it for fun. But when you're trying to put out a monthly comic, that's a hell of an undertaking.
yeah. I mean, I
So
just want to see. So what's the line? So the like, I guess what was also interesting with the Liefeld announcements, the pictures I thought were, I mean, the coloring was great on it. Like I said, I think it's the same colorist who's doing the Deadpool team up, but yeah, there's something about it, like where even the drawing, I sent it to you as soon as we got it on that day, and we were mad because we were trying to record it, but I was sick and
yeah,
allergies and horrible. Tried to record 2 weeks ago. We were just mad that day. You were so mad, and you were like, we should be recording today. Look at this stuff, and I'm like, because I sent you
so
the
much
one.
news was hitting.
Yeah, it was like, but the shaft, like it was a different stance. I mean, it's. I don't want to say it's like a stereotypical, but like when you see if you see a Jim Lee drawing, you know exactly what it's going to be. And I feel like
Right.
sometimes when I see a Liefeld drawing, it's going to be exactly what it. But for whatever reason, the one that hit me was when like Shaft was just kind of shaped in a slightly different way. I was like, I've never seen him draw like this. There's a purely
Yeah.
inspired art here. I was like, oh my god, like I love it, and
And
it's
it's
so
not the one that
consistent. That's like the
they
alternate,
used. Yeah,
right?
it was the alternate.
Exactly.
It's like here's one
Yeah.
image and it was really good. But here's another
That's
image
your
and we're like, what?
standard image, right? Here's your
Yeah.
standard Youngblood. You ready? Here it is. Here's Youngblood's back. See, this makes sense. And then, yeah. And that other image, I was like, oh, can I have that? Like,
Looks yeah, that looks really good. He's gonna bring it to Youngblood. But he's gotta, from what I understand, he's going to finish Last Blood. He's going to do issue 2 comes out this week
oh,
of
okay.
Last
Well,
Blood. And he says he wants to finish 3 before Youngblood launches. So that'll be it. And you know what? Maybe one story will go into the other. Now the thing about Last Blood is
Mhm.
It's kind of his Dark Knight Returns for the Extreme Universe. He's like, if Extreme Universe is going to end, this is kind of how I would do it.
Right.
And then
Oh
he's
man,
like, and by the way, I'm bringing back the rest of the Extreme Universe. So
that's
it's just
fine.
kind of funny. He's like, so yeah, it's a fun book, and I hope issue 2 is as good as issue 1. I
So
seen
if
some
he had,
pages had profit, and the inking on it's really, he got an inker for the profit pages that's just very detailed, very raw. Like it's a really neat look. He's never shied away from different inkers.
yeah, well, he normally does his faces though, right? He normally goes back because he likes to
He loves
finish
doing
his
faces. He's
faces.
trusted
Okay.
very few people, but he's had Chance Wolf inking him on the
Yeah, I saw
Deadpool
that.
team
That's
up.
fun. Yeah, that's really
That is
fun.
fun. Who doesn't love Chance Wolf?
He
He's a
did how
guy,
many logos, right? He did logos also for he did the
yeah,
Shadowhawk
for
logo,
like
I believe.
Pitt,
A lot.
Spawn. Like he created a lot of the early Image logos,
Hmm.
and he was a really good '90s artist then, and he's a really good inker now. But like, what did he do in between? I have no idea.
I don't
Like,
know. Still, I don't know.
I don't know. We'll have to reach out to him when we're a
Yeah.
little less amateur hour.
Right. Right. We'll try. So talking about like cynicism, I almost feel that the I don't know why, and I just because we're not pro Bleeding Cool. We think Bleeding Cool is there's a lot of it's laced with cynicism that we don't love. But I feel
Yeah,
it was very strategically placed, I think, to take the wind out of DC this week. To just announce like the Monday, I think it was Monday. Like so Wednesday, we would say the biggest book of the year, Absolute Batman. It's sold out. It's
yeah.
on third printing now. 7 variant covers, foil cover. Um, just a very stark cover. And I showed my daughter it yesterday. We were in the hospital. I'm like, look at this Batman. She already had her eye base. Okay. But like but and then because she's sedated, I'm like, here, you have to like let me show you things now. But I'm showing her the cover, and then I'm showing her Batman on the motorcycle at the end, and Batman like taking this thing off his chest. It's like arguably the most important book of the year. So Bleeding Cool is like rumor mill. Batman next year is Jeph Loeb, but I don't even know what they're referring to. So is Chip off, and then they're now just trying to like figure out. All right, well, if Chip's off, Chip and Jimenez is off. If they're off, we're going to bring back Jeph Loeb. Jeph Loeb back in the fold a little bit, and then Jim Lee do that again. And I'm like, why are you announcing this right now? I felt like, and then it was just talk about that, and I was like, what are you doing? Why are you taking the focus off this big bat? It didn't matter because the Batman book just plowed everything.
Yeah.
Fine, good, because quality is going to plow. And but do you think that was like? I mean, do you think that's a real rumor?
I think it's a real rumor. I had talked to Jeph Loeb at Baltimore. Mark and I
Oh
went
yeah,
down to Baltimore Comic Con a couple weeks ago, and always excited to see Jeph. He's always been a really nice guy,
so nice. Yeah,
and I was complimenting him on the book. You know, the launch of Bringing Back Last Halloween and how awesome it is to honor Tim Sale like that. And so as a comic fan, I'm like, oh, what else are you working on? And he's like, yeah, this is pretty much it. And it left me with like a sad feeling. Like, is Jeph Loeb done? I know he looks like he could be in his 70s. He's been doing TV
yeah.
and movies for like 45 years.
Yeah, I think he
He
started
was
when he was in his 40s, I think, or late
yeah.
30s. Yeah. He always
So
looked old.
uh,
No offense.
he always,
He always looked like this old guy. You know what I mean? So
um,
us old guys
and I
talking
just,
about that guy looks old.
and I left the conversation like, oh, that's so sad. Like at least he's bringing the last Halloween back, the long Halloween, the last Halloween. Like I'm gonna end my comic career on the book I'm most famous for,
Well, and
and then
he begun his comic career with Tim Sale anyway, right? In
yeah,
Challengers, right? Challengers of the
yeah,
Unknown.
yeah.
So, and
It's a very
if you're going to go out, and he would be working with Tim Sale if unfortunately he didn't pass away. You know what I mean? That would still be a continual
this would be a
thing.
Tim Sale book,
Sure.
you
Yeah.
know.
Well,
Um,
the crazy thing is I don't understand how there's covers for this, but apparently because Tim Sale's no longer with us, unfortunately, but like all the covers for the 13 issues or whatever 12 or 13 issues is going to be, they're Tim Sale covers. And I read an article about like how is that even the thing? He didn't know he was going to do this project. He did the special last year, which they
mhm.
retrofitted to be a zero, basically. It was not. It was just a one shot for an anniversary. That's it. But that's the last work. But apparently they were taken from sketchbooks and people's sketches. Like they're just taking it and they're just Dave Stewart's doing his thing on them, and then there are the covers,
Yeah,
and
I
that's fine.
I find that interesting. I don't think it's I think it's good that they do that. I know Carl Kiesel, he has his book Impossible Jones and Section Zero. He does them through Kickstarters, and he had taken, with permission from his family, a Mike Wieringo drawing of Crypto. It was a commission, and he had
Oh, wow.
re-inked it to be a character from his book, like this dog character from his books. And I said, you know what, that's fine. I feel like it's getting something new. The Aspen guys have taken a lot of Michael Turner's artwork and recolored it heavily to be new covers, whether they're sketches or
Right.
an old
20
cover.
years
They
later.
just
Right.
yeah, and I think that's kind of cool. It keeps their memory alive. And
No, that's
going
right.
back to Tim Sale, yes, give me more Tim Sale. Find a commission, finish it up. Find an unused cover. Artists like Tim Sale are so specific about their pages. They draw full pages and go, nope, and they chuck it.
Right. Right.
Liefeld was saying one time he's seen Ian Churchill draw the page for Coven, which is a super detailed book coming out of Awesome, coincidentally written by Jeph Loeb. And Live was like, that's a beautiful page. And Churchill's like, yeah, no.
Ah.
I'm like, no, don't destroy it. But that's what artists are. That's their life. And Tim Sale, I'm sure, has a lot of unused stuff because he was a perfectionist.
Yeah, it's going to be, I mean, that is a pretty fun concepted series. And we didn't know, we knew some of the lineup, but I guess we didn't realize when we both of us spoke to Dave Johnson, who did, covers, did Super Patriot a long time ago was that Tom and Mary Beerbaum scripting? Was that a Giffen plot?
I think that was a Giffen plot. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think Giffen did more of the second miniseries.
Right. Which was mainly
So.
Dave Johnson complete work, because he hasn't done a whole lot of complete work. He did mainly covers after he got some good gigs. I'm sure he got paid.
He got, because he went from Super Patriot
Wildcats.
and then he did some Wildcats work on Alan Moore scripts, and then most famous, he did the first 2 issues of Superman Red Sun with Mark Miller.
Right.
And that's a beautiful book. I think that's one of his only regrets. He says that he regrets not finishing that book. But as a cover artist,
yeah, I don't know if you would have known. I don't think that I don't know if in the I think only Kingdom Come, and there's literally a documentary coming out about it, knew it was going to be a huge thing as it was happening. I don't think Red Sun knew it was going to be a huge thing as it was happening. It was just like, oh, here's another Elseworlds. Okay. That's it. Really, I don't know. I mean, Gotham by Gaslight was not a huge thing when it happened. It just kind of came out, and then it became like, what's this? And then things just kind of went. We'll have to do a whole Elseworlds episode, where we jump into that. That's a whole other.
They probably didn't realize how big. Yeah, being the Gotham by Gaslight came out around the time of the first Batman movie, when 89 and 90 was just pure Batman. Everybody was collecting Batman. Jocks were collecting Batman.
Right.
And that came out, and we all bought it, because they wouldn't have given such a big book to people nobody knew. Nobody knew about Brian Augustin or, Mike Mignola, or who inked it? Was it P. Greg Russell?
I think so. Or yeah, I think that's right. Or Rick Bryant, potentially.
So, and we got that book. We loved it. Nobody knew. But getting back to our topic of conversation, which we will
never get back to. Well, actually, before I just, there's a quick aside about Gotham by Gaslight, which it has to do with the Roy Thomas thing. So Roy Thomas, for whatever reason, last year just decided he's the creator of Wolverine, right, as a contributing editor. As that happened, Mark Waid came out and stated that he mentioned Jack the Ripper and Batman in a talk with Brian Augustin, and then Brian Augustin just did it because Waid was editing a bunch of stuff. I think he was editing Doom Patrol even at the time for Grant Morrison. And he's like, I could probably go back and say I created Elseworlds, but I'm not going to, because it's just like it's a conversation. It was just, we were brainstorming. I'm never going to, I mean, and again, and this was not in every clickbait article on the planet. This wasn't, for anything other than the craziness of giving Roy Thomas that, you got it, you have enough, Roy Thomas, it's over. Okay. It's so weird to me, and listening to him, I think he's such a nice guy, but like now it just makes me, I always seem like he seems such like a meek guy. and humble and all that stuff. But this is just so weird. This is just like this weird thing at the end of his life. He's like, I'm just going to decide this after. Well, Len Wein's gone. He can't refute it. Let me do that because that's the
Yeah,
other rumor
yeah.
too. He's like, oh, no one can refute this. Only Len Wein. He's dead. So I will
And
say
and
I
the
am.
other guy who's dead is the incredible Dave Cockrum, who actually went to Roy Thomas at one point and said we should have a character named Wolverine. So
Right.
Roy Thomas like, oh, Dave Cockrum might have said that. Like he tries to backpedal on that, but Dave
There's a
Cockrum was
drawing
it.
in Foom 2 years prior of this skeleton that was melted off, and you could see like a melted and then he had an exoskeleton. His name was Wolverine. It was literally on the bottom. Is that guy going? I think Bleeding Cool did like talk to that guy. He's like, I don't know, I just drew it. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't trying to create Wolverine. I'm not going to go after it right now.
So much of comics is a conversation. But like it's the guys who sit there and do the work, the guys who sit there and put pen to paper, pencil to paper. Like that's
Yeah,
so time
Cockrum
consuming.
Cockrum arguably is one of the best creators of character and style
He
and form and outfit. But he was Legion. He was Legion. That was it. He was Legion, and and then he's like, oh, they didn't like some of these concepts, so I'll just keep them. Okay. Well, some of those concepts became was it Storm, Nightcrawler, like
they
even the
became
Futurians. Some of the Futurian, most of the Shi'ar
so good.
Empire
Yeah,
is his stuff
he
that
is.
didn't go in Legion.
I feel like he's the '70s Jack Kirby. Like Jack Kirby had that career 40s, 50s, 60s, but in the '60s he just blew up and created Marvel
Mhm.
and Fourth World for DC. He's probably the best comic creator in the world ever. But when it comes to '70s, like Dave Cockrum goes around, he's second best at doing costume design. It's Jack Kirby's number one, then I think Dave Cockrum, and that's not against anyone
Yeah.
else, but he created so much.
Right. And then
You
what,
know,
John Byrne? You think John Byrne after that? John Byrne Perez? Tied.
uh, who created more? That's an excellent question. For
Even
the '80s,
just I
because
always
I
think
think for the
yeah. No, you're
I,
probably
I
right. I
was
think that's right.
because for the '90s, and we're just gonna come off like Liefeld lovers. Who's
Mhm.
created more characters than Liefeld?
It's
And
toyetic.
recreated costumes, and then he would
Toyetic,
recreate
buddy.
costumes when he didn't even have to recreate costumes. Like here's Cable. 2 years later, here's Cable in a new costume.
Cable had
3 years
seven
later, here's
costumes
Cable.
or something. I don't know if that's right, but I
Yeah,
feel like that Cable had seven costumes. But see, that's what
if
made
you
us draw when we were sketching stuff when we were younger. Like I was like, oh, it always gave me license when I would want to draw something or I drew an extra. Yeah, I want to say pouch, but I drew something else for Spider-Man had like an extra. Like it gave us extra to think about.
it gave us permission to create our own version of Wolverine. Here's Wolverine with 4 claws, which is hilariously I just got wrong. I was like, oh, he has 4 claws, right? 4 claws.
Well,
Because
we drew a long shot with 5 fingers, because
yeah,
we don't really, we're just drawing.
we're
So
just drawing, and
mhm.
that's what Liefeld helped. He really inspired a generation of artists. But where did this conversation start? Oh yeah, so
I
back
just went back
to
to it. So did my theory is that Bleeding Cool was just trying to take the wind out of DC at the beginning of the week, just saying like this Batman rumor, which is going
Dave.
to gain some traction. It did gain some traction, but I just was like, why are you planning this right now?
Yeah, and what's funny is they do like to take the wind out because while they're talking about Liefeld doing a new Youngblood, they're like Youngblood co-created by Hank Canals, and Hank Canals did not co-create Youngblood. He scripted the first issue.
Right.
And he was going to script the first issue when Liefeld tried to do it for Megaton Comics back in 1987.
Right. So
Um,
it's actually bad reporting because if you go back to Youngblood 1 and you read the credits, there's no created by it and
no,
no registered trademark, no nothing.
it's bad reporting. You're right. Bad journalism. He's
It
just
doesn't.
trying to get people angry.
Yeah, it's a weird sensationalism, and a lot of times he's very pro stuff, and a lot of times then I don't know. It's a lot of it's weird favoritism. He did a video this week, Brett Johnson, about like amazing comics. He got like a grab bag, or they mailed him like T-shirts and swag, and he opened it in
No,
an
that's
unboxing.
Joe Quesada's new comic company.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Amazing comics. So, and I like the logo. I think it looks very pulpy. The character, I can't really figure out what that book's going to be, but I'm fine with it. I mean, again,
No,
we were big event comics fans. We did all the. I have Ash right there. I have it right there. I have it right over there in my new
yeah,
Marchive collection. which we'll
They were really beautiful comics. Joe Quesada was a fun artist to follow his career.
Yeah, and I guess
until he
that
stopped
production
drawing.
stuff just happened when he was at Valiant, I think, because he was like kind of putting books together for Valiant when they were like Nintendo comics,
Yeah,
right?
he was
Like,
coloring some of them too.
yeah, Captain N. He colored Captain N. So
I think he's
Captain N,
partially
the Game
colorblind.
Master. Wow.
He's partially colorblind. So like when they did their Valiant Vision, their when they try to do 3D comics in color, he's like, yeah, I can't see the 3D. I hope it's cool. People say it's cool, but I can't see it.
You can
he
use
drew
it
an incredible.
in
He drew an incredible poster. Remember the poster he drew for Valiant Vision? Maybe it came with.
Oh, I think I have Valiant Vision right over there. I should go check it out. Yeah, I do have it.
You got to unbag your comics, Mark. Are you keep
I
it
have
bagged?
2 copies of it. I have 2 copies of Valiant Vision.
Unbagged, one unbagged.
Yeah, and because I have the glasses, and you can look at the glasses and you get a headache. I mean, you can look at any comic, like it's not really like it's pretty much blues and reds, like that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's like the reds pop out at you, the blues go back, and that's the magic.
Yeah, that's it. That's the magic. So, and then I guess the third story, as much as like we don't want to say negative, I just think that okay, so this is kind of a combo news story, right? So number one, Midtown Comics had Dragata and Snyder, and they say they have enough material for 30 issues. And for people who don't understand about comic books, for the most part, 12, and then there might be 2 fill-ins in the 12. Like there's really no such thing as like a 30 issue run of anything consistent with writer artists, unless it's creator owned, unless it's East of West, unless it's Walking Dead, and then even then they had artist changes, like unless it's over there at Image doing a thing where it's creator owned. You're not doing a book because the book and has the if you're doing book for big two is going to be like, gotta get it out. You know what? Let's do it bi-weekly. Let's do it every week. Let's do it like weekly. It's like, what are you talking about? So they're going to try to push it and have some inventory stories, or just try to like alternate the thing. So with that being said, the 2 most exciting books that I've read this year is Aliens versus Avengers, which I didn't think I'd like at all. I didn't want it at all, but it was Hickman and Isad Ribic, and it was, again, old people. It was future Avengers, right? Old Avengers, old
Can't go
Carol
wrong.
Danvers. Nope, pretty cool. And it's late, 2 months late. And then the other book, which I thought there was a lead-in time, and Capullo is not inking it, and Capullo's been working on this for a year, I don't know, a long time. That's 2 months late. So Wolverine Revenge, 2 months late. Okay.
I don't typically notice when comics are late anymore, unless they're the comics I absolutely love. And those are 2 books that I really enjoyed. I was really looking, again, like you said, I wasn't looking forward to Avengers Aliens. I didn't, I've enjoyed those types of books in the past.
You waited. I told you to read it. So would you read that? What are you doing? And then you didn't. It took weeks to read.
I'm like,
so
I didn't realize Hickman wrote it. I'm like, oh, well, Hickman wrote it. Okay. And Ribic drew it. And I read it. I'm like, oh, this is really good. And we have other friends who barely read comics. And they're like, did you read this? I'm like, I did now. And then, Wolverine Revenge, I read that right away, first day. And I didn't buy the violent version. What was it called? The red version?
Yeah.
But I looked through it, and it looked great. And so reading it, I'm like, this is really good. A little bit of super fans that we are, I said to you, did you notice the inking? Because Tim Townsend inked Greg Capullo, and Tim Townsend is an incredible inker. But he's been inking Chris Pichello, I feel like 10 years. So I felt like he took a little of that to Greg Capullo's pencils.
Yeah. Well, I never
at least with the first issue.
Yeah, Townsend's kind of funny because I feel like even with Bacalo, I think it's more of a situation with Chris Bacalo where he has his own team of people, because it's always like Bacalo inks some of his stuff, Alve inks some of his stuff. Like it's like 4 or 5 inkers ink a normal Bacalo, not a late book, a regular Bacalo. There's usually 3 inkers. It's usually Townsend, Alve, and so like, what is that? Like I've never seen that. Like, oh, I need Alve to ink the backgrounds. I need Tim Townsend to ink like I'll do the faces. Like we know Liefeld's not Liefeld doesn't list I ink the faces. It's like Chance Wolf inks. Doesn't say like, oh, by the way.
He doesn't take that.
Right.
He doesn't take that credit. He'll talk about it, but unlike Roy Thomas, he won't take credit for for stuff he
Yeah,
doesn't do.
but I do think that I feel like when I've seen Capullo's art, he needs a strong anchor because I feel like his stuff is just a little looser. That's all. It's more of a he's coming from, admittedly, more of a JRJR style. Number two pencil, not like technical pencils. It's just a lot of it's just like kind of, gray. And I think he needs a tight line. He needs someone, Danny Miki, right? And then I
Yeah,
guess
right.
who was his first ring? Harry Candle, and I can never say his last name, Candiarello, whatever that is, in Quasar, and through X
And he
Force.
had a Pennington too, right? Did he come in for? Was that for more for X Force?
Pennington, maybe. I thought Pennington did Violator 3, if I'm
He
right.
definitely did that because Pennington was Bart Sears inker for the first two.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he remember, I think it was X Force 24 was inked by Richard Bennett, and that was a really super detailed inking style.
Yeah, Bennett and who was it? Well, I always feel like Bennett's similar to like Aaron Wiesenfeld. They were always that same type of like. I sometimes would think they were the same person. They're not. Yeah, it was really weird around that time too because you had so many different like distinct inkers. Like we understand Scott Williams, but we like Art T Bear on Jim Lee most of the time.
It was a different look. It was more honest to Jim Lee because when Jim Lee would ink himself, it had a raw like power to it. Like it's a little bit messy.
Yeah, I feel like he inks with Sharpie. I felt like the I feel like he inks with different things. It's not normal traditional stuff. Yeah,
I
I
think
love
Jim
the
Lee.
Jim Lee cards. The Jim Lee cards are very fun. To different size, and he's inking with stuff, whatever's around, it seems, and that's fine. That's what we like, experimental Jim Lee. We don't like
We do.
whatever Jim Lee
Williams
cover
is
he's doing now.
he's
It's
so
annoying.
perfect of an inker. You know, it skews towards not boredom, but maybe.
It's too conforming. It's that we like things a little messy. But even with that, I think what's kind of nuts about that is that if you think about the Jim Lee who we like, I mean, Jim Lee was what drew over Carl Potts layouts, and we liked him inking himself on War Journal. Every figure was a little bit bigger, it was a little different, than Jim Lee Alpha Flights, which were it just just a more scaled, more Jim Shootery, zoom out.
Yeah.
We like to zoom in, and then when X-Men was kind of the combination of the two. But he also had like studio partners because was he in the same studio with Wills at the time? Because there's a couple issues where they're all together, right? As in,
Yeah,
like,
they did form that studio pretty quickly. Him, Wilson, Williams.
oh my gosh, what a fun time! And was Silvestri in the room with those guys too at the same time? As a tech,
I
he
don't
was
think
technical?
initially,
Yeah.
but I think at one point he did.
Oh my God, what a fun!
He was.
Can I bring you guys coffee? You know what I mean? Could I have been?
Can you guys need
know,
photocopies made?
Yeah, you need me to spot the blacks. Is that okay? Can I just touch it? You know what I mean? Like you want me to just do anything like that? But no, I don't know. So it's just weird. It's weird that like I feel like, and I do want to say that I feel that the promotional machine of like Scott Snyder was just unreal last month, man. He was on
Yeah.
every podcast. He was on every video YouTuber's channel. He was on, like, I mean, just really out there. On Wednesday, he was at Midtown. I think today or yesterday, Saturday, believe he's a third eye in Maryland with Dragati, took him down. So so they're around. They're signing stuff, and I don't know. I wonder if Sean. Yeah, I think Sean. Well, no, I think Sean Gordon Murphy lives in a different space, but I think Sean Gordon Murphy used to live near Third Eye in Maryland or Virginia because he did the variant there. I think he did their exclusive variant there. So, but yeah, just pretty crazy. That is a promotion. That's what I feel that to me when I see stuff like that, I feel like that was when they had tours for signings, when they had an extreme signings tour. They had was it Fatal Instinct? What was that tour? Didn't Killer Instinct, right? Didn't they
Yeah,
do
Killer Instinct tour.
Yeah,
The
so
Ultimate tour. You know,
yeah.
they were going. Mark Bagley and Mark Miller and Art T Bear, Brian Hitch. They all showed up at a store in Philadelphia to do a signing to promote the whole Ultimate line.
Yeah, just
You know,
like
it's a smart move. And this book's a steamroller, and it deserves to be. You know, it's funny. Nick Dragata he's a local guy. He's actually from Southern New Jersey, which is where we are. But he's a talent, and like you said before, he had done, I don't know, 40 issues of East to West.
it's like I think it's a weird number. Yeah, it's what's funny about a lot of those they don't end. They end when they need to end, not like a number, which I think is pretty cool. It's a number like Vertigo for a while was 75, 50, 100. Like it was always
Right.
on that. But yeah, I feel like East to West was like 38 or 41, something like that.
Some weird number that
Just
like
end it.
I
Or
think
like
Kirkman likes to do, is it 46 or something? He has a number which makes the omnibuses that they have.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
there's a
and
certain
that
number.
works. But that to me, that's the biggest that's the best news breaking thing, because again, when Rob and I were young in 80, 89 and 93, basically there wasn't, I guess preview was right around there, but from like 86 to 91 or so, there wasn't a catalog. We didn't know what was coming out 3 months from now. Now we know. So, but the best thing is that Kirkman ever did, I think, is he over solicited Walking Dead's, and they didn't come out.
Right towards the end, they didn't
Yeah,
come out. He
they
made
didn't come
fake
out.
covers. That was a good surprise. He likes a surprise. That was a smart move. Like, hey, surprise! Here's the last issue of Walking Dead. It's oversized and wraps it all up.
Oh, what a good
And
issue.
it was really good. You can't beat, again, future issues. Here's the end, and he did the same with Invincible. As
Right.
far as like, here's the future. Here's 500 years of Invisible stories that you'll never get. And you know what? I want those stories. Give me them. Give me them Invincible stories back.
Well, I wonder if he will, because I mean, I know that the Walking Dead Deluxe, I imagine, I mean, listen, it's on issue like 93, 94 at this point, where they went back and recolored everything, and I think he either has his plot. I think there's two things in Walking Dead Deluxe. I've only ever looked through them a little bit. I want to say that his plot is in there, and I want to say he has like an essay about like the production of it,
No,
like
you are.
reading it now, right?
Yes,
And that's
he does that.
crazy. That's cool.
Every issue is colored. They take away the gray toning that
Mhm.
Cliff Rathburn had done, and you're right. He puts his plot in, which is basically a 1 through 24 pages, and it's real vague. Rick talks to, someone, and this guy falls, and zombie, like it's real minimal. And then he goes through and says, "Yep, I didn't do that. I chose to do that." What I don't you can't even read his handwriting. It's so bad. But
Is Charlie Adler the most successful accidental artist? Like, like he did stuff, right? He did
yeah,
what was the one X-Men miniseries he did? Was it X-Men? I'm trying to remember what he did. He did
I
Code
know right.
Flash
Code Flash, which is gorgeous.
with
I
Joe
love that book.
Casey.
One of Joe Casey's better books. Top 5 Joe Casey for me. But he had just done The Establishment with Ian Eddington, which was a kind of a spin-off of The Authority.
Yeah, it was Authority, the Monarchy. They had like all these. They were trying to do these little. It was very British, and we don't know.
It's British. Yeah.
We tried it. We're like, I don't know. I think it's too British for me. Can't do it. But also really strange. Yeah, he lives, I believe, in London, or lives over in Britain, and he just drew Georgia for like 6 years. I'm gonna draw this, and just coming from a royalty perspective, great. You know what I mean? Great. Yeah, we should do a list of who we believe are not accidental millionaires, but the whole thing with comic books, the lore is the comics will break your heart, right?
Right.
You go see $1 billion movie, and you're like, I think I created that guy, or oh, I got 10 grand and a plane ticket. That's the Jim Starlin thing. Jim Starlin basically got 10 grand for what? How many movies? Basically like the
Yeah.
Thanos concept, and then he goes, and he's not a bitter person, but he could be. He's not, but like he should be, I think, a little bit. Um, But yeah, 10 grand check, and then you get to come to the premieres. Okay. I think even the Deadpool stuff, like I know Marvel's not paying out. Like I know they had basically the last the Deadpool Wolverine, they had a group of all. I think it was Gail Simone, Duggan. I think Posehn might have been there. It was like all the stuff that we read, because I remember us calling each other when I think I was yelling at you. I was like, "Did you read this? Read Deadpool last week with Posehn?" And I was like, "What is this?" Like, I was crying. Like it was just
Yeah. It was
that's
that. We thought it was just going to be so goofy, the Posehn and Jerry Dugan run. And then he does an
oh
issue. You're
man.
like, this is really, it's really hitting you.
Yeah, I really wish someone would have done a cartoon, because I feel like the cartoon would have. I guess that was the Donald Glover cartoon, right? Donald Glover and his brother.
Yeah. Donald Glover he wrote it. That would have been
Yeah,
a
that's
really
a
good
shame.
cartoon, because
But if they took all that stuff, because I don't think you can do that stuff, some of that high concept stuff. I don't think you could have really done that. with the Shield agent and someone in his head. Like it was very like it was like Firestorm, but like it was just I don't think you could have done it if unless it was again you know budget wise, Ryan Reynolds isn't going to make 10 movies that, you know what I mean? It's
No,
not
no,
really it, but yeah. Oh boy. Okay. And so that's the news as much as we didn't stay on the news topic at all. That's kind of
it's more of a
what we do.
spiral. We just
It's
spiral out of every point leads to
doesn't feel
another
like a
point and
downward
another
spiral.
memory.
Yeah. 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 Doesn't really feel like that. Okay. So now we'll go to reviews. We need to come up with like little songs. I should get reviews. We need to come up with like a
Yeah,
name of
we'll
the
use that.
reviews. And
We
then you
did
have
that
a
song.
grading scale. We didn't really talk about the name, so we were trying up. You had comics up for a long time, and then when we were talking about last couple weeks ago, Awestruck is kind of like your adjective that is, I think, the best because I feel like that's the way that I've felt when we got Youngblood 1. Oh, where did you buy Youngblood 1? That's an important question.
I bought it at there was a store called Rainbow Comics
Okay,
here in South
Black
Jersey, and I'd gone to a store that was closer and they didn't have it. They were sold out. And I was like, no, I've been waiting for this book for 6 months at that point, you know? And we're like, all right, let's go to the next store. And we're lucky here in South Jersey because every other town had a store.
Right,
we were very fortunate in the 90s. And even to this day, we have a lot of stores. So yeah, Rainbow Comics, I went in, they had like 10, which is, I was so ecstatic.
Did you buy 2 copies? Did you buy the flip?
I didn't buy 2 that day, but I did eventually get another copy. Because I like to have both of them when I went through my comic box. I'm like, here's both covers. I love good cover art, and both covers were really good.
Yeah, yeah. I think I bought it at I don't remember. See if you can remember the store's name. It was on Haddon Avenue, in Collingswood. I went to an art school that my dad put me in. It was mainly just where you would graduate. So it was literally pencil colored pencil, graduate to inks, graduate to watercolors, graduate to
Was
oil.
it Riddle Me This?
Yeah, that's right. Riddle Me This.
All
Yeah,
right.
I think it was called something before Riddle Me This, but it was Riddle Me This when I went there. And then because another guy bought it, and I always feel like there was always a weird thing because same thing happened with is it A Plus Comics in Glassboro, where like half that store, the guy who was like the assistant manager bought the store, and then that at the store at one time became like half a florist. His mom ran a half a florist, so the front was like a florist, and the back's a comic book store. Like it's,
Yay.
again, when things got tough, man, there were some strange store combos, right? Like there was a store that was literally like almost a room inside of like a strip mall in Woodbury, like Main Street. Do you remember that? It was just like it was like a literally like a room, and you go in, and they were open for like
That's
3
how a lot
months.
of companies started. Didn't Mile High
Yeah,
start as like a back of a room of like a bookstore or something?
yeah, yeah. Oh,
You
it's
know?
just it's so weird, but yeah, but I remember I didn't know when it was coming because we didn't know when it was coming out. That was the other thing too, is we'd go like, oh my God, it's here. It wasn't like a
Yeah.
thing. When we got more catalog, the other major memory for me was I rode my bike to what was the store in Woodbury next to the Little Caesars? That Little Caesars still there in
Superhero City.
Superhero City. So I rode my bike on not that great of a road, right? What's Deptford Avenue? Like
It's a
just
very
that.
dangerous road. You have
It's
Evergreen
horrible.
Ave
It's
and
horrible.
very busy.
Difficult. Right. Almost died. Right. I'm riding to get it was Return of Superman. So it was Return of Superman. And I went there and I bought all the deluxe and I bought all the newsstands. And then for whatever reason in the
That's a good
middle,
investment.
right by the Deptford skating rink, I was on the lawn right there at the Deptford skating rink, and I was looking through and I realized I didn't buy the issue, the Man of Steel one, because I didn't have the die cut. And I was so nervous. And I rode back to the store to get it. And I was like, and thank God I was so upset because someone else had it and they put it back. And I was like looking at this guy. I'm like, put it back. You're putting it back. And I remember like trying to, Jedi mind trick. I'm like, just put that back because I don't have
You
that.
got to arm wrestle him for him. Be like, over the top, Mark. Over the top.
I would have lost, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Majorly lost. But yeah,
You were
those were
what?
my two formative.
Yeah, you were like 14, weren't you?
Yeah,
You were
yeah.
you were young. You're a year younger than me.
Yeah. So, but okay. So this is actually an actual segue. We did it. So flip book live. So with Youngblood, we had a flip book.
Right.
And the first review I want to talk about was which we tried to have our first episode talking about the all in special, which I feel is a terrible name for it because it doesn't That's just a it's the initiative. I just think it's a bad name.
It's
I don't know what you could have called it, but
it's
I
a
just don't
good
love it.
initiative name, but it's a bad
Yeah,
line name
it's
because DC has a history of. I want the DC universe to be cohesive. Yeah, I want a good DC universe. We had a pretty cohesive DC universe. What we broke in the comics in the late '80s, so it was already post-crisis, and we had a good universe all the way up till '52. And since '52, New '52, it's been kind of a mess.
right.
They've had great stuff, but you never know, does this count? Do I want to put my heart into it? You know? Um, but at least All In, and at one point they were like, everything counts. Okay, it's a cop out, but it's a cop out I kind of want. Just make me believe that it counts. And I think that's what they want with
Right.
All In. Make us believe that everything counts.
Well, they're having their cake and eat it too. So I understand, and I also think that they're doing the labeling wrong because I feel like the Absolute Universe is one universe, but if you look at Absolute Batman that came out this week, All In is on the corner, and I'm like, don't have that in there, or just have like maybe just an Absolute like logo, and also not a star, but if you saw Batman, which they restarted twice, right? They did New 52, and they restarted it again, or is
It
it
was
still the same?
with Tom King, right?
Yeah, right. So you now have, and Detective they never restarted, but you now have legacy numbering, and they have a little
Rightfully
triangle.
so.
So
Right.
they have the triangle, but the triangle in our head is how you would read Superman from 80, I don't know, 87 to 90 something maybe. So you would read 4 issues of Superman in a month, four. It was originally three. It was Adventures, Superman, and
And
Before Man of Steel.
action.
Action, right? Of course. Uh,
Action.
Dummy.
What's that comic?
Which created the whole right, exactly. So, but you would read those in order the triangle time, which it's so funny now when I read that at the time. I think the one I liked the least, which now I like the most, was because I didn't understand the art per se. I was young. Is I liked them all, but I liked the least. I should say I liked the least. I liked Man of Steel the least because I thought Superman looked too big on the page. And I don't care who's Double X. I don't care about the star or the what were they? Like the star.
Yeah, Cadmus.
Yeah, I
Cadmus
don't care about
Labs.
Cadmus, right? But that is all Kirby concepts. I don't know that. You know what I mean? I don't know that as a kid. I'm like, I don't like this guy. This guy looks weird. Double X. I don't understand this guy. So, and then as I got older, I'm like, oh, I like that the most. I like the Bogdanov drawing,
I
kind of like a Neil Adams slash John Byrne, but then a Kirby like like lilt. It's like, oh, like I love it now. That's one of my favorite, probably my favorite, could be close to my favorite Superman artist
I
is John
enjoyed all
Bogdanov.
that, but when Carl Kiesel got a hold of it in Superboy, it made me appreciate Cadmus more. So when I went back and reread
Correct.
it, I'm like, all right, I
Yeah.
like this all. Yeah, sometimes a story that comes along later on makes you more interested in the stuff that happened in the past. And in fact, that's our entire comics life.
Right.
Reading the new stuff in the '80s made us want to read the stuff in the '60s and the '70s, and
Right. Well,
read
we did.
everything.
Yeah. When
We
Superboy,
literally tried to read everything ever.
when Grummett came back, because it went away. So it was Kessel and Grummett starting Superboy, and then it went to a few other people.
I went to
And
Ron Mars and Eduardo Barreto, right?
right. Or Will
So
Rosado. There was a couple people in there. Um, but then when he came back, when Grummett came back, and then it became OMAC, and he was Superboy, Commandy,
Commandy,
like
yeah,
yeah.
Commandy.
So I'm just like, oh my god, like so that stuff was like I read that stuff backwards in a way. Well, even the whole my whole comic book life I read backwards in a way because my first comics were around the house. Dad had comics around the house. It was Moon Knight, a couple of Sisters Master Kung Fu, had a Hulk issue, just kind of random stuff. All Marvel at the time, no DC. But my first purchase comic was Peter Porker. Believe it was number 9. I have it over there, newsstand. I bought it at 7-Eleven on Cooper Street in Deptford, New Jersey, and bought it with my own money. I had a Slurpee, cherry Slurpee, and then I read it right there, right there. I pass by. I know exactly where it is. But I learned I learned through, and you love parodies, so this is also probably be a whole other episode eventually, just parody.
Parody and the origin of our comic love.
Right, because Mad Magazine was at the Berlin Mart and they were cheap, and it was like
Yeah,
I know those movies because those movies are on Channel 17, and I know Superman, I know like so it's like oh what's this, and they had the wax marker on them. But anyway, but I learned the Marvel Universe through Peter Porker, the Spectacular Spider-Ham, and my brother was already reading. My brother was already an X-Men. He was already reading X-Men Spider-Man. I'm just like ah like this guy's funny. You know what I mean? I didn't know Spider-Man wasn't funny because
yeah.
that was a serious Spider-Man. That was a serious black costume Spider-Man. It was very serious, pre-Venom. I don't want that's not funny. There's no fun in that. That's all Roger Stern. It's all kind of pretty serious Spider-Man stuff. Death of Gene DeWolf, like whatever. Anyway,
He was
so um,
he was a good writer though. Like he had a good handle. He did something that David Michelinie did later, which was that sometimes Peter can be cool. It might be by
mm,
accident or it might be subtle and he doesn't even notice it. Like Roger Stern had him. I think he's walking out of the Daily Bugle and he has this piece of paper. He just throws it, kicks it, goes in a trash can. People are like, "What?" And Peter doesn't even notice that he did it. He just does it because it's got
right,
perfect spider aim. You know,
Spider Aim,
spider aim. But it's
perfect
funny
Spider
because
Aim.
like you said, I did get into Marvel comics by doing parody stuff first. I read Not Brand Ech from the '60s and What the, and then I got into What If.
What's great? Yeah,
So what's interesting about What If is it tells you what really happened before it tells you the What If story. So I'm like,
yeah.
okay,
Three
now I know what
pages of it
happened.
really happened. Right. What if
Yeah,
the X-Men had died? I'm like, well, I don't know. They died. Why'd they die? You know what I mean? Like, and then they really died. I'm like, okay, so they didn't die. Like, it was just very a lot of those a lot
and
of those what
also
ifs
it was
were
a
out
horrible
there.
spoiler book. Like, what if Elektra lived? I'm like, oh, Elektra died. Also, who's Elektra?
Who's Electra with a CK? Well, that one not the first appearance Electra with a CK on the cover. Electra.
It's
Um,
Elektra.
so somehow we got to this, but the flip book. This is where I think digital is actually hurting us a little bit because the all-in special, which I terribly titled, coming out of and Youngblood, you read the way I read it, right? You read probably the cover that we saw in ads first and then
Yeah,
flipped it. Right.
the home team.
Home team, right, home and away. So digital, you have no choice. Digital, all in, you're reading it. Danielson Perry is very it's very and I don't know, did they dedicate why don't you just dedicate it to Dwayne McDuffie? Just dedicate it to Dwayne McDuffie, that'd be fine. Because essentially, is it Williamson and who else? This was co-written by Snyder, right? Basically, and maybe McDuffie worked on it. I guess you could just thank the Warner Brothers animation team in a way, because the concept was Justice League Unlimited, which is what the book's going to be called, Justice League
Right.
Unlimited. They do a satellite. They're all up there. They get. I don't love that they have membership cards. That's Avengers thing. There's an Avengers cover with membership cards on. Like there's like seriously, you could get Avengers log. I believe you can cut it out and fill out your own membership card, right?
I had my own Adventures card. Maybe it should just be like the Justice League app. They're like, hey, we need you. Justice League.
Yeah,
Well,
it
maybe you
seems
need a
like
special
it's.
phone.
But see, I feel like that everyone has it. It's less special. It's like a participation trophy for the DC universe. You ready? You're in the Justice League. Here you go. Here's your participation trophy. Here's your card. It's electric, I guess. Like I don't know. It just doesn't. It's portable. I don't. You're right. It should be an app or something like it should be in your costume or
Something
it should be
for
futury,
no,
slightly
it should be
futury.
like a brain app that Martian Manhunter. Hey, you want to be in the Justice League? I'm gonna give you this little neuron that
Yeah,
activates. This neuron helps you get into the. You know what I
you
mean?
already made it
Because
better. You already made it better. Right.
I'll call Mark Wade.
It's a little future. You need to make it. And who did? Was it? I guess it was Jeph Loeb McGinnis, right? Was that? Who did the Y2K stuff? Was that? I
That
like the
was Jeph Loeb.
Metropolis Y2K. It was McGinnis, and it was
Yeah.
like future concepts, and there was some
Yep.
3D modeling, which I didn't love at the time, but like kind of, it was ambitious,
It's
fun.
it's of the era. But yeah, they
Right.
made Metropolis a futuristic city. I think the story was they somehow take Brainiac and Brainiac made the city into like a utopia,
Map the
like a
city.
true
Yeah.
metropolis. So I think one of the concepts was the whale rail. It was like a train that was just like an ocean liner train. You know, that was a really cool. I think it was a McGinnis design.
Yeah, it was definitely McGinnis design. Sorry, I'm trying to get my dog to not bark. He's doing. Nope. Okay. Um,
Dog's gonna dog.
So I don't know. And also I understand, and it's Danielson Perry who did what was the last Crisis? Dark Crisis of
Dark
the.
Crisis, which
So didn't they
turned
change it
into
in the middle? Dark Crisis of
in the
Infinite
middle to
Earths.
Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths. Yeah.
exhausting. But I felt that was a little exhausting. But Danielson Perry, I think, got better and better and better. So he did the majority of this book, I believe. They did the whole front end, but it was just a little too. I guess it was a little jarring. So that was so normal and traditional, right? And then I also don't like. So then they have. So it splits to the very middle, or I assume is the middle, because again, I'm reading it digitally. The middle is a Dan Mora. I guess we can spoil it. Like it's basically like a Legion of Superheroes, dark sidey stuff. So dark side's there. There's dark Legion superheroes. Good. We like Legion. We always talk about Legion. We also have
They never seem to
various
know what to do.
incarnations. They haven't known what to do. I don't know how long. I think Wade was the last one that had a handle on it. So maybe if he's gearing this, then do that. You know,
You
I
know
don't
who
know if
did a
that
good
counts
job
anymore.
with Legion? I think when Wade left, they brought in Jim Shooter. I think it was Francis Manipul. That was actually really good.
That's right.
Even
Yeah,
though
yeah,
Jim Shooter was writing a version of Legion that wasn't the version that he wrote when he was 13.
right. He was
Hilarious.
13.
Can
How,
you imagine? Can you imagine writing comics at 13?
how did he get paid? I don't understand. They wrote a check to Jim Shooter. How did he cash his checks? Like, I guess I don't. How did he have social security? Like, did they take taxes out? They wrote him as a
Yeah.
freelance. I guess they wrote him as a
They
freelance,
they
right?
listen. Child labor laws were a little sketchy. The further back you go, the worse it
Right.
is. So
Yeah.
there was probably no law against a 13-year-old working. I mean, you have child actors, so why not child writers?
I guess. Yeah. That's very, very strange. Yeah. We'll have to Legion. We'll have to have a Legion episode. Um, but it would just felt it to me. I don't know. I like the first half of it, but
It's very positive. It's very, hey, everyone, this is the Justice League utopia that you kind of have wanted.
yeah, I don't know. It to me it felt a little. It felt a little too sweet, It was a little too saccharine for me. And then when it turns, and I also don't like. I understand that, and again, Dan Mora and Jorge Jimenez, they're almost like the Russell Dodderman of DC, right? Russell Dodderman for years just has done ton of designs for Marvel characters, So I feel like over here, Dan Mora just kind of redoes. He did it on World's Finest and just kind of redoes outfits slightly. So I feel like he's kind of the guy who's doing that. So they have just a center spread. So it was a little bit. I guess I don't know. The coloring was cool on the center spread, but it was just a 2-page Dan Mora. And again, I almost wish I didn't have a credits because it says in the first credits it's Dan Mora later, and I'm like, all right. I would have liked that to not know that. Okay, that's okay. But
Yeah,
then
it would have been a nice surprise. I love surprises in comics.
I would have known. I would have known. It was it more just credit or just put it in there. I don't know. Yeah, I would have liked to not known that middle. And but the cake and eat it too thing that we talked about is that basically, so so everything in the DC universe is happening, and then there's some type of rift point with Darkseid that it ends in absolute power. Absolute power ends with Darkseid, and then there is a rift universe basically. So absolute universe is happening on another.
Right.
It's an infinite Earth, right? It's another Earth.
It's
Earth
it's another.
53.
They try to make it more special than just a typical multiverse Earth. Like it's just as important as DC Prime Earth, which they, if I remember correctly, I should have looked this up. They did start to set that up at the end of Dark Crisis. They
Right.
do talk about this
Right.
Earth that they couldn't access or something. And you know what else I don't like? That making Darkseid a singularity. Like there's only one Darkseid. Since New 52, there's always like, oh, every multiverse, there's only one Darkseid. It's not like every multiverse has its own Darkseid. I think that causes a lot of problems and confusion, being that we've known multiple Darkseids throughout DC history.
Yeah,
You know,
there's
he's
the
not a,
Kirby Dark Side. There's a Jerry Conway Dark Side, is slightly different. There's a Giffen Future Dark Side, slightly, So yeah, you're right. There's a bunch of there's
and
Burn Dark
there's
Side.
Elseworlds where he's raised Superman, like there's just a bunch of Darkseids. He's not one Darkseid.
Yeah.
Which is something I think Marvel's actually doing with Galactus in their movies. I think he's a singularity.
Oh.
That's
Okay.
the rumor from that. Not that I want to go talk about movies yet, but
Right. Yeah. I mean, we'll
it's,
see. I mean, but the whole thing is that, and I love the Wes Craig like art. I think the Wes Craig art is I think the Wes Craig art is actually kind of the perfect kickoff for like what Absolute should be, right? All the arts is pushing a little further. It feels very exciting. I think Dragato on Batman is exciting. Hayden Sherman has been sneakily through some DC books over the years. Worked with Scott Snyder in his whatever his he has like a line, an anthology line. He did like Dark Spaces, but he did like one about fire that was like wonderful. I don't think you read that, but like really really good. Aiden Sherman's been quietly really really good, so I'm excited about the Wonder Woman book. And Rafa is a little too. We'll see. Maybe he'll stretch a little bit. I'm not sure. To me, he's a house style DC guy, so he's going to be doing absolute Superman, little house,
Yeah,
but
I'm surprised they didn't
um,
go with someone more stylistic. Yeah, but
uh,
like you said, we'll see what he brings to it, because especially what that man has brought to the table, it's like he really kicked open the doors with that book. You know?
yeah. Well, let's end on the so A story. You're good with it. A story worked for you. Good setup.
Yeah, little messy, and like you said, it is a little too saccharine, but the saccharine part sets up for the dark part later.
Yeah. So the flip book basically, Wes Craig is just kind of this really very New Gods, very bloody. But the Wes Craig art was much different than I've seen him on Kaya and the Deadly Class. Um,
Yeah,
so just different, and it reminded me of Sanford Green actually a little bit, which Sanford Green, that Doom one shot still in my head. I love that Doom one shot so much.
another Hickman book
Another Hickman
in
out of
another.
continuity book, and that's
Yeah,
okay
all three Hickman books that we've talked about today are all out of continuity.
because the stuff he's done in continuity has been makes me crazy. That's why. Like the Secret
He,
Wars makes me a little crazy. You know, like it's
he
I don't know.
he's a writer. Not that I'm trying to crap on him, but he's a writer that always starts off really good,
Mhm.
and somewhere in the middle, he just, I don't know if he loses it or he just forgets like what he's doing or what made the book really good to begin with.
Right.
So staying out of continuity and in short bursts, really, it's a really good move, I think.
Yeah, I think I want to say they're doing like a some type of a better edition or doing some type of like special edition for that Doom book. Yeah, because I think I would like to, if I saw Sanford Green, he's at cons. I think he was at Baltimore too. I think if they do a special edition book of that, I want to get that because that's so that book. That book was I didn't want that book to end. I knew it was a little bit longer, and I was reading. I was like,
Right.
oh no, this is a one shot, and I'm having such a good time in this, and it just was like that's one of the best books of the year. Um, but the main book and then but the flip book, yeah, the Wes Craig push of it really felt like something. It felt like, and that's where the flip book question comes in. I'm robbed of that a little bit, but I don't know if I would have read it the way I don't know. I don't know how different it would be.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
you
because
could it because it's if you read that first, like I don't know. You do. I think it does make sense to read it second. Supposedly, if you read them concurrently, But I think you have to read it the way the digital has it. Sure. I just don't know if I would have if we're robbed of that by having that digital space. That we
yeah,
have to read it like this, and that's it. And then also, you're not coming to the middle of the book, so like there's also that thing is you don't really know when the book ends, per se. So you don't know when like that's the thing with digital is like you don't have it in your hand. Like I know, especially when how when image would backload the ads, right? So you
right,
knew how many pages you had left for this in an image book. DC, you know that it's kind of spread throughout. You know where the ads are. Marvel, same thing. You know where the ads are. But with something like this, you know that it's a flip book, right? So you know you're getting to the middle of it. So I don't know. To me, that's what's unfortunately lost with some paper by having non-paper stuff. With something like this. Now
right.
when I ask you something, because I think we talked about reading on paper because my iPad was dead and I went to urgent care this week because my daughter has bronchitis and I thought I was sick and anyway so I went and my iPad had like 1%. I'm like oh no, and I had to take like a paper book and I'm like oh paper.
You froze up, Mark. I don't know if that's me or you. Edit this out. There we go.
All right. Awesome. All right, I'll have to edit that, I guess. I don't know, or just leave it. Um, yeah,
So yeah, if you what happened?
my cat walked across the thing. I got him to see. I saw him. You saw me kept trying to switch him out. Recording's still on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
I'll
never
have to
stopped
try to edit
recording. It
that.
just went to you froze and then you went to like a big M.
That's awesome. It was a green M. It was Brat. It was Brat Summer M. Uh, so yeah. So the flip book thing, I think we lost a little bit of that, unfortunately, because we don't have that paper to kind of see where we're at. You know.
Right. Yeah, I've
But
really come to love Marvel and DC digital,
mhm,
because their paper quality isn't always that great. It kind of took away from the specialness of what comics used to be. Some people like I love the feel of paper, and I'm like, I love making a panel bigger for my old man eyes. You know,
right. There's definitely an old man component. Absolute Batman was like it's I don't know what all his influences are. It's kind of interesting. Like I think some of his influence I feel like some especially with the faces, I feel like a lot of it is, some Japanese or manga influence and Chinese. Like I feel like a lot of it is that,
it's
especially
manga,
with
it's
small
Frank
panels.
Miller. There were pages that had 12 panels on it. You know, I just happened to look at one. I'm like, but the Scott Snyder is working hard to make the story flow, to make the dialogue flow. He knows he's got a strong artist with Dragata, so Dragata's telling the story. You barely need the dialogue, and
Right.
I think Scott Snyder realized that. That's why because especially when he started, he was very dialogue heavy. Which when you're a new writer,
Right. Right.
that's what
Right.
you do because you're insecure. But
Right.
comics is 90% art. And with
Right.
Dragata, he hit it out of the park. He knew who he was writing for.
Yeah, I don't know. And then they've never worked together, right? This is never. They've never worked
Not that I
together.
not that I recall.
Yeah,
Yay
maybe
for not
on.
doing research.
Well, I mean, they
Let's
might have worked together,
let's
like
never do research so we get
yeah.
stuff wrong,
Let's do
and
because we love listening to podcasts where things are wrong, and then we get all mad, and
then we
then
get crazy.
yeah, how do you not know that? Ugh.
How do you? What a moron!
Yeah, this was a big, impactful book, man. Like pretty much from the get go. That cover. I mean, I've looked at that cover. I've just lingered on that cover for a long time. I think that's really crazy. And I don't know if you saw the third print cover. It's the motorcycle jump,
Okay,
zoomed in a little bit. So yeah, the future printings are probably just going to chop it up and take different pieces because there's a couple of them. There's a piece where he's like, where he's yelling at the crowd and he has like spikes coming out of his back, and it's like it's really powerful. It's the most. But even with him walking around the town, it felt very Dark Knight because I think that Dark Knight Returns has him smaller than normal. The panels were very different in Dark Knight Returns, which is why it's so impactful because you're like, he's walking around town. Is this Commissioner Gordon's got a mustache? Is that Commissioner Gordon or is that Bruce Wayne? Like there's
right,
just a lot
right,
of stuff initially, and where'd my mustache go? Like what I mean? And when we first saw that, that just changed everything. That there, I mean, Watchmen was coming out at the same time, but Watchmen's 9 panel grid. Well, last stuff was 9 panel grid. You know what I mean? So, but it was working with inside the 9 panel grid, which was so fascinating. But Frank Miller was like, I'm going to break the 9 panel grid and I'm going to have a big giant splash page of him jumping off. And I do think that there's major impact because one of the biggest splash pages of my life is when Batman gets the symbol like shot off, right? Um, and then he's like in the camera's face. And then here they take the bat off and he has kind of the same mesh underneath,
yeah,
but it's yellow. It's a yellow mesh. Why would you have yellow mesh? It makes no sense. That was the argument of like, because they told what, and at the time they told, now this is all out the window, but at the time in what, 86, they told Frank Miller, like, we need the symbol, we need the circle. So he has it for
right.
what, 2 pages, and then they shoot it off. And then he's like, oh, I don't have that costume. I just have some old costumes in the back. I'm going to wear this old costume now.
What a
Sorry.
what a what a smart move. That's because you can't trademark a bat, but you can trademark a bat in the yellow circle.
Right.
That
Which
was
came from
DC's.
66. Was that a
Yes.
66 situation?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
those couple years are pretty fascinating of all that stuff. There's a lot of lore, even with Superman. There's a lot of lore of that stuff where it was like radio drama became continuity. Uh, serials became continuity. Batman, same thing. Trademark and television stuff went back and forth continuity. Was it Batgirl created for 66 TV show?
Yeah. Well, they had a Batgirl, but she was different. They had Batwoman and Batgirl, Kathy Kane
Right.
and her niece.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, all right, we're going to do a new Batgirl. And we want her to be a redhead.
Right.
And you know what? Smart move.
Yeah,
Good.
it's great. Yeah, so I mean this whole thing was, it was just page after page, very impactful. I do like Alfred Pennyworth as like an MI6 operative. I think it's awesome. Um, and they drop a couple things in there. They mentioned Henry Ducard, but I'm trying to figure out that. And then of course the last page spoiler is gonna kind of set that up, because I think that you have to have that. As much as, you know, I may not want that on Front Street, it's fine. You know what I mean? I feel like you need that. I don't know.
I think that's a very, yeah, let's save the last page spoiler. Let it not be spoiled.
Right.
But you
Yeah.
know what? Great direction, good dialogue, good
I
description
can't wait
of
to read it.
said character.
Yeah. And
Let's
again,
see how
those
that
guys are
turns
out
out.
promoting, and that's the thing, is like,
Yeah.
again, in the spirit of like what we want to say. So from the space of, you know, if we have two ratings, kind of like I was saying, like to me when I read some stuff, sometimes I'm just like, and again, just to kind of talk about movies for a second, there's that theory of late that's been kind of coming out saying like no one sets out to make a bad movie, right? It's not,
Right.
there's just chemistry that may not work. So we never think that like you're purposely making this comic book bad. That's not the way it is. There's some breakdown of the
No, you
chemistry
are
of it.
spending like 8 to 14 hours just penciling a page. Like you're not gonna, even when you crap it out, you're still spending 4 to 6 hours drawing a page.
Yeah, and sometimes
That's,
it can work in your favor. You know, sometimes the pressure of it can work in your favor, and it looks awesome. Like when we find out when books and, oh, this book was done in 2 days, you're like, really? I don't know. Like, you know, like we don't know because we just like
yeah.
the rawness of it, you know. But yeah,
Larson drew an issue of Spider-Man in like half a week or something. Kirby was drawing what, a comic a week? These guys are
yeah.
just
I mean,
incredible.
was Larson drawing that? Is that when? Because I remember when I was. This actually was a pet peeve of mine when they took away. I thought it was such a cheat. They took away Spider-Man's powers, right? So they took
Yeah.
out the
Uh,
blue highlights of his legs.
yeah.
So
I hated that.
you don't have to draw
I
muscle definition. You're telling me that? And then on newsprint, it looked bad because it made
Yeah.
the black sunk into the page a little bit, so it made it look
So it
weird.
looked faded.
Yeah,
Yeah, it didn't look good.
it's not. And I'm like, oh my God, I hate this. But yeah, that was like, I was like, oh, there must be some deadline stuff going on because I was biweekly. You know, like that's when I think that's right around the biweekly time. But I was like, oh, this is very convenient that
I,
he loses powers, so like you just don't have to draw a lot of
yeah.
muscle definition. It's just black here, legs
I
black.
love
Like I'm just
drawing
like,
the legs especially. I used to love drawing the muscle. I used to love drawing Spider-Man. He was like one of my favorite characters to draw. I love drawing the webs, the costume, the muscle definition on the blue parts.
yeah, I guess was McFarlane I'm just trying to think about like who drew it pre. I mean, it went to black costume for a long time, but
The
I'm
black
trying to
costume
think.
might have been where they really started doing some muscle definition because you had to do something.
Yeah, do white backwards, right? Yeah, that's probably
It's
where the
interesting.
origin kind of came from. But yeah, I always thought that was kind of crappy. But the two, you know, I remember reading something recently. I'm like, hey, I can't believe this is bad. You know, this shouldn't be bad. And I was like, I'm like dumbstruck, or I said I was dumbfounded by it. And you're like, well,
Yeah,
we'll have to call it dumbstruck. So I would say
dumbstruck.
all in. I have to say awestruck because I have to go because there's really two rate. I'm just doing two
Yeah,
best
we're not.
worst, right?
There's no middle rating right
Yeah,
now.
and even the dumbfounded, we don't want it to come off negative. It's like this didn't work exactly for what I wanted. And I'd say Absolute Batman. If you could even put that, I love that Absolute Batman is kind of our first like review because I think that's the best book probably since Transformers 1. I think has been the most impactful book for in the last few years. Like that was pretty nuts. I feel like that was like definitely something
Yeah,
that I wanted to reread right away. I looked through it. I'm zooming in. I'm looking at it. But I feel like
it's a funny connection, and that's something I love to make connections in comics. And everything we've talked about has connected to something else. Whether we talked about Roy Thomas doing this, and then Shooter coming back to do Legion, or we talked about Jeph Loeb doing Batman and Awesome. Like everything just connected and spiraled in this weird conversation we're having. But when I was reading Absolute Batman, and they get to I'll call it the Dark Knight page, where it's the full reveal of Batman. It's like it not only gave a Dark Knight feel, but it also gave a Larson Spider-Man feel in a way that when he was drawing Spider-Man, especially during the Sinister Six storyline, every issue you got a one-page splash of Spider-Man doing something, whether he's he's flying over Vulture or he's like about to fight Electro. And that's also reminiscent of what Ditko did in the original Amazing Spider-Man Annual #1. Like he did the same
Right.
thing. He'd do a panel of Spider-Man fighting that character. And reading Absolute Batman, when you got to that page of Batman, it's so worth it. It's earned. It's an earned pinup
Yeah, all
because
of it.
you've spent
Right.
so many panels creating everything.
Right. Right.
It was just a really, and there was, I don't know, it was like halfway through the book before we got Batman, or if not further.
Yeah, well, Batman steals I mean, a lot of it's just like Pennyworth. You see the gun, you see the hand,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a misdirect right off, because it's like, okay, we're going to the theater. Okay, we're gonna have a Batman origin. Okay, here we go. You know what I mean? Like then it's like we were gonna. They did a couple misdirects in it. They did a misdirect with Alfred. The motorcycle later on. Like there's a couple callbacks to it. Yeah, I don't know. I think all of it's like really something. You know what it reminded me of? That huge Bruce Wayne working on like a construction site just reminded me of like when Thor in the Simonson run, where he was like Sigurd Jarlson, where he was just like a
Yeah.
guy. He never turned back to Thor. He just like put on glasses. Actually, there was a Superman cameo in that. Superman and Lois are walking by. They're
No,
like,
I,
"Look at
I
this
remember.
guy," and I was like, and then that was when I was pretty young reading that. I'm like, "Is that allowed to be? I don't think that's allowed." I remember that it was taboo at the time.
It was
I'm
so
like,
taboo. I remember what the put Superman or Super Duper Man or whatever the Stupid Man, I forget what they
right,
called him, into John Byrne's Fantastic Four parody. I'm like, oh, can they do this?
right. Are they allowed
You
to
know,
do this? Yeah,
or
parody it.
it is parody. You know what? Another good example is that the Batman movie was so big when Spider-Man had his cosmic powers. He like grabs this guy, and the guy's like,
Oh
"Who
yeah.
are you?" I'm Bat.
Uh,
Spider-Man.
right, right, right. Yeah, it was
Or
it was like stupid pop culture. Yeah, the first 5 minutes of that movie is just like imprinted on our brain.
yes,
You know, Uh, oh my God, yeah, that's so insane. So yeah, so I'd say Awestruck, Awestruck. The third one, did I have a third one? I thought I had a third one we were going to talk about. Third book. I guess we didn't write it. Did you have a Marvel book or anything, or anything else that you read?
uh, nothing's popping. I mean, obviously, we read a lot, but it's been a busy week, so I'm not really as caught up as I should be. Um, so I mean, I'm still reading Amazing Spider-Man, and it feels weird. I
Oh,
think we had
yeah,
discussed it. Like
I could say dumbfounded on that. The last 3 issues, nothing has happened. There's nothing has happened in 3 issues.
it's a
I'm very
long, drawn out.
confused.
It's enough stuff happened that it's one issue worth of story in 3 issues. That's what I feel like.
Now, that being said, a couple months ago, you called me like, I don't know if I love, because it was kind of a dialogue issue. I was like, I don't know if I love Ramita on this. And I'm like, yeah, it was okay. But then the last 3 issues, that being said, again, dumbfounded that it's so spread out. But I love the way Ramita's drawing this like action sequence where he's beating up Tombstone for
That was
20
really good.
pages.
Yeah,
And I'm like, oh, but I guess I'm so confused at the editorial there because Zeb Wells closes his storyline.
yeah,
And then
completely
they didn't have, I feel like they were scrambling. They didn't have the writer coming back. They had, I guess it was Joe Kelly's coming on, right? Is that right?
correct. Yeah,
He's not ready to come back. So they're just like, Zed Wells, I know you just finished it. Can you give us 6 issues? And then you know what? You can just keep working on the dangling plot lines or plot lines you closed. And just
yeah. Just
you might as well just reopen
what
them a
else you
little
got?
bit. Just
Shake
reopen them a
that catch
little
up a
bit.
little. Shake that can
I
and see what else comes out.
That's right. Yeah, it's exactly like what else you got in the bottle? It's so weird. Like I've never seen that. I've never seen that before, where
Yeah,
and I feel like there's a lot of like up in the air stuff. I feel like the X-Men wasn't supposed to be Gail Simone. That being said, because I have no expectation of Gail Simone, I like that book kind of the best. The Jed McKay one's
Dave.
good, but the
Yeah,
Uncanny, I mean, Marquez helps a whole lot, but I kind of like that one the best. I think I just like all those. I'm most familiar with the characters, and then I want to say that X Force might be a solid 2 as well. Well, 3, I guess 3, but X Force because I like Forge, so I've always liked Forge. So I think I'm gravitating more towards the characters, but I like the characters. Who's because there's a guy who's basically like Box, right? Isn't there like an armor? Right? Isn't that the guy? It's a guy in armor. It's a guy in a thing.
yeah,
That's an X Force. But I'm like, I always liked that big guy, right? It was Box or whatever is an Alpha Flight. It's always the same guy, you know. But I really like Juggernaut. The Juggernaut magic stuff they're doing in X Men. The McKay, Jed McKay, Brian Segment.
Right.
That's been fun, and I think that the Juggernaut design, I think it's so goofy looking, but I love it. Like I love it, and
Yeah.
that's again going back to like the Dragata design of Batman. Like mess around with it. Like it's very inspired. I feel like the X-Men. I feel like the Stegman artwork is inspired. I feel like he's doing. Okay, I get to draw X-Men. You know, like it used to be. It doesn't feel exciting anymore because again, Marvel reboots like crazy. You know, this is X-Men. What? It's not that special anymore. It was X-Men Volume One, right? Jim Lee,
Right.
and then it's been. I think this is probably volume. They don't even tell you anymore. They don't have it.
No,
The DCs are
and,
no
and
good now.
they don't know.
They're
I don't think
hiding.
because they don't know what books to count as X Men. Like when they cancel X Men, it was replaced by whatever. It's like, well, this is a continuation of that, but it's a different title. So if you go back to legacy numbering, does that count?
Is Amazing X right? Because then they have like Amazing X Men. They have Exceptional X Men now, right? And they have it's Absolute X or no, it wasn't Absolute. What was
Oh,
the
they should do that one, right? Absolute
Astonishing?
X Men. Do Absolute X Men. That's the book
That'd be really
I'll
funny.
pitch that. I'm gonna pitch that.
Yeah, that'd be really
Yeah.
funny. All right, so we could go to media. We're doing so
All right.
we both saw things that the other person didn't see. So last night
That's a good
before
move.
it's yeah, right, exactly. Good episode one move. So I two Mignola things the last 2 weeks. The Drawing Monsters documentary I just bought on iTunes. It was in conventions forever. Feels like it's a couple years old, but still very very solid. Didn't do exactly, and then it's so funny. I listened to the audio of that guy who helped, who directed it and kind of curated it. Was on a different podcast, Word Balloon, but he was saying that people are mad at him because it didn't like Wikipedia through. Oh, you skipped this part, you skipped that part. That's the way I felt a little bit, but I'm just like, well, I can read that stuff. I can read that interview. I can do that. But
Yeah.
really really good. But I think it gave a better idea of like this like aloof creator coming from different background, coming from different story, and just almost accidentally falling into creator of Hellboy. Like it's kind of nuts, like how like this thing happened. So and you could tell the story because I thought this was an afterthought in a different article on Vulture or something. So Hellboy exists because of a cover disagreement from who we believe is Bob Harris, right?
Right.
So Rob Live, or I'm sorry, so I'll kind of start it. So Magnola mentioned something when Magnola needed money, so he literally would just show up to offices. This is him. I'm not saying this. He admitted this. He just shows up in offices and just kind of hangs out, draws a pin up, inks some pages, like just draws. This was just it's crazy. So he mentioned something. He's like, just kind of throwing away like I don't know if I like Rob Liefeld so, but it's exciting. It's something. What is this? I wonder if I can just kind of throw it out there. Wonder if I should draw over him. What if I drew over him? Because when we were young, we didn't know anything about this. We didn't know this was laid out by Liefeld. We just was like, oh my god, wow, there's a Magnola story in the middle of this X Force book. What the heck's going on?
Yeah. X Force number 8.
It's not nothing.
That's
There's no credit on the cover. No credits on the
no.
cover.
You just it starts off. I think Cannonball had gotten torn open by Sauron, and you're like, oh, what's gonna happen to Cannonball? And then it's like, oh, here's a flashback, and
Yeah, we're not gonna tell you.
it,
Right.
it was so Magnola was so jarring to me at first because I just wanted Liefeld. But then, like when you read it, you're like, this is really powerful stuff. These are really good storytelling. And then you find out 20 years later, Liefeld laid out the whole issue, and he posted
Right.
them, and I'm like, oh wow, Magnola did a really good job following Liefeld's layout. He would change
Yeah.
a couple things, but I'm like, who knew? We went around
What
for 20
what
years
the
thinking
big
this was
things? Right.
pure Magnola.
Yeah, and what's so the basic thing that ended up happening, and why this is like his last work for Marvel, I guess, right? Besides some variant covers later
Yeah, yeah,
on. This is after Jungle Adventure. Um, he mentions to the editor, he's like, "Well, I want to draw a cover, but I want Rob to draw the outer cover or something like that." And he's like, "Okay, yeah, we'll work on it." And it was kind of blown off. Which
yeah.
would have been cooler. I think I've never seen that. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. There might be a couple, there might be some Perez Burn stuff that I'm thinking of potentially, that there might be something like that. But it would basically be like a frame kind of like the first couple pages, it would be like a maybe cable on top, and then he's like maybe showing you computer, and the computer is, I don't know. I don't know what it would have been. It seemed interesting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But at that time, they're like, get the books out. This guy's leaving. Because at what point was that announced? I guess this is a very Youngblood centric episode. If 8 comes out, is Youngblood announced at that time? Because he only did what, 2, 3 more issues of X Force. He's drawing
One?
Youngblood probably at this time.
No, he only drew one more issue of X Force, right? Number 9.
So, advertising wise, Marvel tries to sue Liefeld because he drew Executioners in a 1-page ad,
He
and he's like, "You're
right.
not allowed to do that." He gets in trouble.
They didn't sue him. He got an angry call from an editor that was like, you can't call a book an X, whatever, Executioners. You can't have X in it.
Right.
Like they own the letter X, despite Malibu already had done X Mutants.
X Mutants was for 83 or 84 that came out, right?
Yeah. So like, well, I don't see the big deal. And the Berserkers is actually a better name, I think. When he changed those characters to the Berserkers, and it's funny because Executioners was I think he had actually brought that name up instead of X Force. Like that was one of the names because you always pitch multiple things, and X Force is the one that stuck.
Right. So it's funny. So these editors, probably the same editor, strangely, helped push away Liefeld. Cool, right? Youngblood happens, right?
Well, no, I don't think it actually has anything. I think Liefeld never really complains about Harris at that time.
Okay.
But the Liefeld move was he was going to stick around, and he still wanted to do the Cable and the High Lords miniseries, and he was still plotting X Force. X Force 10 and 11, he was still plotting. I don't think he got credit, and he did draw the cover to X Force 11 with Domino and Deadpool on the cover.
Right.
That's and the Cable miniseries we got, Blood and Metal, that John Romita drew, is a heavy Liefeld plot, like real heavy.
Right.
So it was a weird move on Marvel's part. They pushed out all the Image guys, and they shouldn't have. Like, don't get angry about it. Like, these guys love Marvel. Larson still. I mean, we'll get to this, but they all did not want to leave except for Todd McFarlane. Todd McFarlane was the only guy who's like, I'm not going back.
Right.
Because he had already quote unquote retired. And it's funny to think that we actually thought he really retired. He's like, I'm done with comics. I think he was having a kid at the time. And we're like, oh no, McFarlane's never going to draw comics again.
Right.
And he was probably like 35 at the time, like.
Right. Yeah. So basically, I guess Mignola is back in office. The book is done. It's ready to go to press. And he sees he mentions, do you need that cover? Did you talk to Rob about it or whatever? And then they said that he sees the cover. I guess he sees the cover that goes to press, right? The 8 cover. And then he gets miffed about it. And then when they ask him, they kind of blow him off again. So he's like, I'm out. And then
they offered him another miniseries, right? Like, oh, you can draw this X-Men miniseries to placate him.
Right.
And it's not that Mignola was a name, but like we were enjoying his work. His 90s pinups were awesome. And he did 2 or 3 with Cable and Wolverine. And, he was really building himself up into something that we wanted to see. And then Marvel didn't catch in on that. I don't know what that miniseries was. He didn't announce it. He didn't say what it was.
I don't think it ever came out. I think he mentioned it never happened.
He said it never happened. So we missed out on, I don't know, something neat.
Yeah, I feel like the only thing that I could have thought it could have been that I think it would have hit his sensibilities would have been that Ascani's son stuff, which Gene Ha did. I think that it would have been great on something like that, just like kind of Disparate Future, no background.
That was really later.
That was,
what else
yeah,
would have been?
So.
Well, something else would have been neat. And the Ascani son would have been really interesting because he had done that X Force 8, and to follow up X Force 8 with more future Cable stuff would have been a really smart move. He also would have did a good Nightcrawler or Gambit. He loves shadows and those 2 characters. Gambit with his jacket and Nightcrawler with his ability to disappear in the shadows. That would have been neat stuff. But instead, we get Dracula. Topps goes, oh, you're looking for work? Scoop them right up. And that was a really well drawn series, Dracula.
Yeah, that documentary kind of credits that Batman issue he did, that like Cathedral issue. They kind of feel that's like Hellboy 0. which I don't know. I feel like that came out, I think, before Dracula. They didn't talk about Dracula at all.
In Legends of the Dark Knight, they didn't talk about Dracula?
Nope, not at all. Zero.
That's a very strange thing to miss, because that was important to us, because we were just in it though. Like those early 90s, we were just in it. We were reading everything, buying everything.
Yeah, so the whole thing with the Mignola doc, I'd still say that's a good. I would say it's a rental. I think $4.99. I bought it. I think it was $12.99 to buy, but I don't know if I'll ever watch it again. It didn't have no extras, whatever. But but I wanted to watch it. That's fine. And then same thing with Crooked Man. I didn't buy it. I just rented it. And the thing with Crooked Man, I'm trying to think of the guy who directed it. He's directed a couple things here and there.
Yeah, the new Hellboy movie. The new Hellboy.
The third Hellboy movie. The third, the direct DVD, basically, not necessarily like a Walmart, like.
It's the fourth movie, right?
It's the fourth, third incarnation. So, but to me,
third incarnation.
Like, first Hellboy movie is Seed of Destruction, right?
Right.
I think that's, and the second one is a Del Toro movie, which is chronicled in that documentary. That it is not. That's where they show the rift of them, and they both talk about it. He's like, I'm doing this. He's like, well, Hellboy wouldn't do that. He's like, nah, I'm making the movie. I'm making the movie. And that's where Del Toro's ego just keeps going. And what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Like, you have to have a certain ego to direct a movie, period. Like, you have to have this, like, kind of.
You got to be able to say yes and no without a second thought. And
you got to keep going. You got to keep going. So, now, the one that came out a couple years ago, I don't remember who directed it, but the guy who, and it should have been good, because that guy,
the David Harbour
like
one.
Yeah, and that guy directed some, like, I think he did High Tension, did Hills Have Eyes, so I'm pretty sure that's the same guy. But the whole thing that is a bummer, like, but to me, the Hellboy was uglier, and there was only a couple times where I felt like it was Hellboy. There's a part where, Broom goes in and starts talking to him, and he's like, "Gotta go to the Osiris Club." He's like, "That strip club in Jersey," and just the way he says it, and he's eating. Is very Hellboy, but the model of it was just a little too ugly. I don't know. It didn't always work for me, but in the artistic style, and this is moving into this one. This is a story that I'm not super crazy about, The Crooked Man. It's okay, but that's a beast. It's a Richard Corbin story. Okay.
Right.
And they take other pieces from, like, Elphick Cup. They take a couple little bits of two other stories. But what I kind of love about it is that to me, the Hellboy, there's a side character and then a female, the three main characters. There's a priest, and there's Crooked Man, and there's also, like, this witch in a tree. They're all performing the best that they can perform. No one is. I like it because it's super consistent. No one is better than anyone else. The Hellboy's not magnificent. This guy's crappy. She's crappy. No, they're all, like, very good and consistent. This is my Richard Corbin movie, and I think it's very grindhouse. I love the title sequence in the beginning. It's just a barely a score, and then they just show 4 pieces of woods. And if you know anything about Hellboy stories that are side stories that are in, like, Dark Horse Presents, Crooked Man, miniseries here and there, it's Hellboy goes to a town. What is this?
Or the ghost. The corpse.
I do like this because they do the same thing in the Hellboy books. Hellboy's around. So no one's like, what is this guy? Like, he's just a guy that comes in. He's just a detective that shows up. He gets a call. There's a person on the ground, and they're stuck in a state. They were possessed by something, and he's like, I gotta figure this out. Like, it's kind of cool. But what I really liked about it is that, like, all the special effects are pretty good. It's just very good across. My only complaint, and I'm just surprised, and it was short, it's hour 36. And it's just, like, good, and the character's scary. There's a couple good jump scares in it. The only thing that I don't understand, and they didn't do it in the last 2, and they did it really well in the first one. The best power of Hellboy viscerally is what? What would you say? Like, what is the biggest thing? Like, besides the hand and all that stuff, like, what's the primary thing when you think of Hellboy? Like, that's a power in a way.
I'm not sure I'm following you here. Like, what,
like just like the aesthetically, like what's the aesthetic thing that we think is just crazy about it? I don't know. For me, maybe it's just for me.
I don't know. I don't. We've talked about Hellboy so
I
much
guess
and
in
so
so many
deep.
different detail. I think the
Yeah,
big
I mean,
to me, I think that the use of red in the first Hellboy movie is just like solid red and like stark. The stark redness of the first one is the best. The second one,
correct.
things are more gold than red, right?
It's in
The
the title.
Harbor one, it's just kind of like he's red, but it doesn't like it's not
It
stark.
it doesn't make it. Yeah, it doesn't stand out. It's not. It's
This
not
he's
special
almost
in the
brown.
third one.
Yeah, this one he's almost brown because they color grade everything so heavily that he's not. I just think it could have been a little cooler if, and I do think whatever body build, listen, they've gotten it down. The body build is ridiculous. No one has to necessarily have to get in shape anymore. I don't know if Harbor
Correct.
got in shape, but like he had a bodysuit in. But to me, like I love that I have three different versions of Hellboy in my lifetime. Hellboy is 40 years old, I guess, but like you have three different
Third
versions. You have a very Mignola version.
will be
I think
32, right?
I think you have a really good version of. I think that the Harbor is the Duncan Fagredo version. Still ugly,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
still
The ages
nasty.
Duncan. It's his story.
Yeah, it's Wild Hunt. It's Osiris and the Osiris Club, and that's my favorite. That little trilogy is my favorite. It's period. That's the best story all through. I want to say it's like Hellboy like Library Edition like 4. Like I've read that a couple
Right.
times.
It's
That
good.
altogether is the absolute pinnacle. But this one, and I wish it was a TV series. I wish to God if this creative team, and I don't know this guy's name, Jack Casey. I don't know who he is. If this creative team, I don't know how much it's cost, but it was written by Christopher Golden, the director, and Mignola. Okay, the story about Mignola. 3. Christopher Golden wrote, I don't know, countless, a ton. Besides Arcudi, has written the most. I would say is Mignola, Arcudi, and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, he literally wrote Hellboy novels. You know.
Right. So I think that the grasp of Hellboy is perfect in this. The way it ends is could be very easily just do a new one, go to a new town. This is 1959, I want to say.
Is
So
it?
again, what's cool about it is that you can just kind of plop it in because Hellboy's been in existence, but it plays around a little bit with some Hellboy continuity and it works. All of it worked. To me, it was just like I know exactly what I'm getting and I'm very pleased. You know.
It sounds easy enough. It's like almost like a little bit of the '70s Hulk, like going town to town, helping people
Exactly.
out. Like if
Exactly
you
right.
could do it cheap enough, like this would be a good HBO series.
And what's crazy about it is that Ron Perlman, but I think Ron Perlman still makes money. I think he's still kind of a draw. He's still in a B or C or D player and stuff. And I doubt he want to put all the makeup on. But the reason why I think it's interesting is that Ron Perlman started out with Beauty and the Beast and he had makeup on. Like just throw a bunch of
Yeah,
stuff on him.
yeah.
He doesn't have, I don't need to see his chest, throw a t-shirt on him. I don't care. Second movie, you have a t-shirt on. I don't care. You know what I mean?
No, I agree with you.
There's enough of that stuff, but I would have this guy. This guy I think is relatively young. I think this guy's really good. I think his line, he does no crap. He says the F word, I think, once or twice. And I'm like, like I just like the oh crap. But to me, that's always fine. I don't need the F
It's
word
funny.
because it's rated R.
No, it's funnier to do. Oh crap!
It's good. I think every bit of it kind of lands. And yeah, if I could have this, if you could make, I don't know what if it's making anything. I have no idea. I'll have to maybe look at that. But speaking of making no money, because this movie didn't come out at all. Like at least with Hellboy, the David Harbour came out for 2 weeks. 1 week, 2 week. I saw it by myself. You know, in the midst of one of the divorces. I'm not sure. Um, but I went to go see it and saw it, and I was by myself, of course, eating my popcorn, crying my popcorn, extra salt. Um, but but I like that. That was fun too. So I don't know. I wish it could get going because again, the second one, the part of the David Harbour one is you had Daniel Day Kim as Daimyo, and I'm
Right.
like, oh man, And then they have Lobster Johnson in that. Okay, they show stuff from the like kind of they overlap some first stuff. I don't think you needed to do that,
You
but
know,
I
it is
love
weird that they rebooted it like that. The Dave Harbour one should have been a continuation. Like
just do it.
it
Right. You don't
just
need to go back to any of that stuff. I don't need
no,
to see Hellboy's birth again. I got it. It's not
no,
necessarily
and
like
and
like Bruce Wayne got shot in the like or the alleyway. It's not exactly that, but it's not you can just say it in exposition or show a picture. They did that in a couple books where they just show the picture. You see baby Hellboy and you see a bunch of people around him. That's how I think they maybe even done it in Seed of Destruction. I'm not sure if they even go into his it might have been Wake the Devil when they go into his actual like origin. So
Yeah,
yeah,
you know me, I'm very anti-reboot if you could just continue the story. And I think just recasting Hellboy and just you don't have to, like you said, you don't have to reference the first two movies, but know that they happened. And you know, if you can reference it, even better. You
yeah,
know,
I think Doug Jones is retiring also, but it's a bummer they couldn't figure anything out that they couldn't just have like because Doug Jones is kind of a TV player now. He's been on Star Trek Discovery for
he's the
7 years or something like that, right?
right, right, five seasons, but yeah,
Yeah, so
he's
he's got it
phenomenal. He's the
down.
best thing about that show. He's so good.
It's like 7 feet tall. He looks so crazy. Like it's so weird. But
I almost prefer him with makeup on. Like
yeah, I don't know. It's weird to see
when
without
you,
right exactly. But yeah, but he makes Shape of Water. But to me, like it's weird that a Shape of Water never would have happened if it wasn't for the two Hellboy movies. Like you win.
yeah,
It's and I think I don't remember if Mignola even worked on that or if it was just like I'm just gonna take kind of some stuff and I'm just gonna go make this other movie. So speaking of not making a lot of money, I don't know what this Hellboy movie made, but it was talked about, came out. I'm hoping it's doing pretty well. I think it's going to get good word of mouth. I think it's going to gain a little bit of something because
you
I
know,
do think it's very watchable. It's so
if it's halfway
it's
decent, like you're saying, you know, I mean, I want to see it. I just haven't had the time yet, but you know, I want to see it. I love Hellboy, and
all the decisions made. The score is really good, and all the decisions made, and it ended with the same type of like weird, like quick cut end credits, very grindhouse, like very cool. And I don't know. I just had a ball with it. I was just like really excited about it.
I feel like it's a weird move to not try to like get it in movies a little bit, even if it's a limited release or you know, just like can we make a couple $1 million to start and then we'll put it on digital?
Well, yeah, I'm almost curious that like because I think the Superman movie was a Fandango and now it's out again. The Fandango screenings did well, and now it's the Super slash Man Christopher Reeve story is now out. So that's out in theaters again. It
That's
was supposed
good.
to go, yeah. So I think that's making some money now. But no, I agree. And even when we went to go see that Frank Miller documentary, that was a Fandango one nighter, and it was kind of crowded. It was pretty full. I
Yeah.
imagine that through the U.S. they had enough. I think that it would make sense to have that live stream in the beginning, which wasn't great, but it was something. It was something. But we've been to the Transformers events, and they're very poorly planned and very not content filled, and
Yeah.
they're just kind of like the last one, very odd. They just throw up a thing like these people died. Bye. Like it was like very weird. I was like, this is weird.
And 10 minutes was like a commercial for like here's everything coming out Transformers, which is fine.
Yeah,
Do that. You know, if I gotta watch a 5 or 10 minute commercial about everything you're doing to watch Peter Cullen and Frank Welker voice act, yeah, I'm in.
right, right.
But it was
Um,
done very strange.
and then you saw
There was
media
no like
wise,
they didn't plan it.
right, right, right. And you saw, and I haven't seen it yet, so we'll finish that one. Then we'll go to what we both saw together. Is Joker, which we didn't talk. You haven't said at all what your opinion is. It's not doing well. Um,
It is not doing well. It's unfathomable that they gave him carte blanche to just do everything. Like I mean,
it's blank check. It's a
like
blank check movie.
it's a blank
You made
check.
$1 billion. There you go. It's Batman Returns. I'm gonna put penguins in the penguins, and I'm gonna have a slow countdown by this lady. You
Oh, the
know,
slowest countdown ever in
the
Batman
slowest
Returns.
countdown of all time. Like
But
we can look back on it finally, but I remember I was disappointed in Batman. I liked a lot of it, but I remember leaving. I'm like, what was? It's a lot of penguin. Like I don't know.
it's
It wasn't
it's a Tim
great.
Burton movie more than a Batman movie. Just
Right.
like Hellboy 2 is a, you know what I mean?
It's a Del Toro
It's less
movie.
a
Correct.
Hellboy, it's a Del Toro movie. I still love Batman Returns. It's
There's a
really
musical number in the middle of Hellboy too. And just that they do like what raindrops keep falling on my head in the middle of it, and I'm watching like,
right.
what is this, right? And even Spider-Man 3 musical in the middle. You're like, what's happening? So I think so. Musical may be the breaking point of films, right? Basically,
Of superhero films.
superhero
Like
films.
maybe they like the Spider-Man musical number. It's well,
That's
they do it
fun.
in Spider-Man. They do Spider-Man 2 as well. They do Raindrops Falling on My Head, right? In
Oh yeah,
Spider-Man 2.
that's right. They
So
do the melancholy freeze frame. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's
freeze
a
frame.
they do the
I
freeze frame.
see that was
Uh,
good. But the dance musical number of Spider-Man 3 is a little rough.
hmm.
In fact,
If
all
you
the singing in Spider-Man 3 is rough. Mary Jane is
yeah,
not a good singer, you know, or I
why
know she's not
why
supposed to
why was
be.
that important? It's not as if like Kirsten Dunst is a Broadway star. Why did they
Correct.
decide this? Like,
Yeah.
okay, listen. You have Lady Gaga in your movie, right? What are you gonna do? maybe advertise that it's a musical. Yeah, maybe mention something. But I heard the musical is weird because there's some diegetic. There's songs then there's songs that are original in it. Is that right?
Her song, yeah, yeah. It's a weird. Everything about this movie is weird. He tried not to make a sequel to Joker One in his sequel to Joker One. And the end,
Why was
everything
this
about this
made
movie is
though?
weird. Money. It was just made for money. There's no artistic value in it. There's stuff I really like. Joaquin Phoenix is always fun to watch. Lady Gaga is
Yeah.
always gorgeous to watch. There's really good scenes. There's creepy things. But all in all, like you kind of want your movie universe to progress. You know, whether that was Joker, because the first movie ends and he's captured by the police, but he's free. And then, you're like, oh, is he going to build a gang? Is he going to build something? But like, he doesn't. And this is just basically a long musical Law and Order episode done for 100 times the budget. And that's what it feels like. It feels like an episode of Law and Order. And it's strange
Yeah.
that it cost 200 million to make.
Well, I don't know what a Todd Phillips movie is, right? Because like again, he did he did well, I guess after the Hangover movies, he did Old Dogs. Is that right? Is that the only other one? So Old Dogs,
Since
War
since
Dogs, War
he did
Pigs,
like War Dog. He did a
War
documentary
Pigs.
or something. He was involved in. Um, he's a really good director of original movies. Like I like Old School. I like Road Trip. You know, I like Hangover, but then nobody likes Hangover 2, and I've never seen Hangover 3. So
Yeah,
maybe
I've
he's
never
just
seen
not
it.
a sequel guy.
Right, right, right.
And I hesitate to spoil the ending of Joker. I don't know if anyone is
I
going
don't.
to watch this.
Yeah,
Are we? I don't know if we're going to be spoilers or not, Mark.
yeah. I'd say no spoiler on it because I didn't. I don't.
Okay,
I don't want to know either. I want to. I know it's polarizing. I know all that stuff, but I'm surprised I've been shielded by it. That's also kind of interesting. I don't know.
that is interesting. It's because nobody's seeing it, Mark, so nobody can tell you.
Yeah. Or if anything I see, I get close to it. I just push off of it. So I don't know.
Yeah, because you and I we enjoy surprises and stories. I hate spoilers. I hate them with a passion, and I
So
do my
like,
best to avoid them.
yeah. So media translation. My favorite media translation that I never thought about it was in Daredevil, the Ben Affleck Daredevil, where
Right?
he sleeps in a sensory deprivation chamber. Because how would
That's a
he
smart.
sleep?
You're
I've
right.
never seen that. That's never been in the comic book, and I'm like, oh wow, okay. So what we like about like these comic movies is like, what do they slightly change to? Okay, if we have to do this in reality, how does this make sense? Now that being said, in the same movie, you have the exact Frank Miller fight in a playground, which in real visual style looks goofy as hell. Like it looks really
My
goofy,
my favorite
but it's
scene in that
correct.
movie is correct. Sometimes
It's
things don't
correct.
transfer. Sometimes things do.
Her death,
A
correct.
sensory deprivation tank, is a genius idea that worked well in a movie.
Him
Or
with money. I don't know anything about.
and with money.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
anything
I
about
don't.
that.
I'm like, oh, I guess how
How
would
does
they
that
pay for
happen?
things? That's super interesting. But the worst thing is when uh oh, what the hell's the journalist's name? I'm
Ben
blanking.
Urich. It's Ben Urich.
Ben. Yeah.
Joey
He's like,
Pants.
oh, Daredevil must have beat up all these people. How do you know? And he just like throws a match down and the two D's and fire light up.
Right.
And I'm like, did
Which
Daredevil
was
just sit
after the
there?
Crow. After the
Yeah.
Crow.
Well, did Daredevil like, oh, I beat up all these people. Let me get out my kerosene and make a big D so
Yeah.
they know I did
Let
it.
me just do this. Let me
Maybe
get lighter
just
fluid
in
and let me
case.
draw this. How do you draw
Like,
that?
how do you
And
draw
you're
that?
blind. He's
And
blind.
you're he's like, all right,
Let me
this is definitely a D.
D. And then the
D.
little D's, little circles.
Do people know he's Daredevil? Like, is Daredevil a thing? It's very
It's
it's just
easiest.
it's a funny scene. But it's not
Oh
meant to be funny.
yeah. Actually, there's a weird tag. Well, not a tag. There's a weird thing in Hellboy, the new Hellboy, where there's like a marking, right? So you're gonna mark it, right? There's a witch that literally paints blood on a white horse. Okay, got it. Knew you were there, right? Cool, right? You can do graffiti. You know what I mean? Like you can do something. You can do something. But yeah, the that was a very '90s trope. Like we're gonna put it, you know, I don't know. It was really goofy. That was no good. Yeah. So we like it
So
if it pulls away. So you're saying Joker for the most part because okay. So let's go back to so the end of Joker one. He goes to jail and then he's talking to the shrink at the end, and we know that basically the chaos. He's the agent of chaos. Great, they do a great job. He gets arrested. What is happening outside? How many Joker clones are there? How many gangs are there? Like that is the interesting part. But then I
Yeah,
also know that you don't have to do this because what to me what always rang false in the first movie is he doesn't have to be in the bathroom. He doesn't have to be Bruce Wayne's brother. He doesn't have to be. That doesn't need to be his dad. Bruce Wayne's dad's a shithead. Like I don't know. No, like I don't need it. I don't need it. So to me, the extra parts they put in Joker one, none of it works for me. Zero. You could have just Joker as Joker, fine. Like I don't need it. I don't need him to put his finger in Bruce Wayne's mouth. Stop, please. Yeah,
you
you know what I mean. Like you don't need any of this stuff.
that movie actually didn't even need to be a Joker movie. You just could have called him like the Maniac, and
Yeah,
A24 put it
but the
out.
transformation of him going in the bathroom and laying back and doing the dance, like it's so weird and ethereal, and it's great. And it's
Yeah,
great. Like his descent is great. And I'm just like, man. But I also wonder if like you didn't have like he doesn't have the framework, right? Because he's like, all right, I'm gonna do King Comedy and Taxi Driver, right? So like this movie is like, what do I do now? You know what I mean? Like is like what if I'm gonna do anything? Like I don't feel like he has original. I don't know if this cribs off of like Chicago or I don't know what it cribs. It seems like there's different things it's taken from, but that's
it
okay.
does as far as the musical numbers go because they're all imaginary. They're not real. That's not a spoiler. That's just you should have figured that out
Yeah,
watching the trailer.
right.
Um, like I said, there's good stuff. Their performances are great. The musical numbers kind of unnecessary. There's one or two that really they all work in the sense of the movie, but like there's a better movie to be made out of this movie. He just didn't. He just I feel like he really didn't want to do it, which is odd because in an interview with him, he had said that he had approached Warner Brothers like, hey, can I just get like other directing people and just take your characters and make weird movies with them? And when you make $1
Well,
billion, DC probably would have said, yeah, you know. But this movie took so long to make and probably cost so much. They're like, yeah, we don't need, you know, somebody else coming in and doing a Heat Wave movie, or somebody coming in and do a Dr. Psycho movie. As neat as those
Firefly.
things might be, it doesn't fit the bigger picture
Can we have
of what
Darren Aronofsky doing a Firefly movie with Brendan Fraser? Because Brendan Fraser was almost Firefly, like he was
he
Firefly, and
he
it's
was
in the vault.
Firefly, and I
We
hear
need
this
that to
good.
come out. That's
I want that Batgirl movie. We deserve that Batgirl movie. Our taxes paid for that Batgirl movie to be
so.
shelved. So we should get that. You shouldn't be able. Listen, if you're a movie studio and you make millions or billions of dollars, you shouldn't be able to write off a movie that you do. Like, I can't not do my job and go, you know what? I don't want to do this now, but pay me for it. I'm going to write it off.
Right.
I mean, you can
Yeah.
write off losses, but you shouldn't write off. It's not a loss because you didn't do it.
Right.
You didn't put it out
Right.
there.
Right.
If you put it out there and it didn't make money, then maybe you could write it off. But you didn't put it out there. You didn't. There's no reason that Batgirl movie should be shelved, and there's no reason. It's probably good. It's got all the right ingredients. It's just a matter of whether it's put together properly.
I just find it weird that are we that, but this could be true because I know that I know I have a computer in the basement that has like literal like photos of my kids from years where I have no backup. Like they're just in this computer, it doesn't work anymore. Like right, so I have pictures of my kids for years in this. So I would be like, oh, how do they not have it? You know what I mean? Like they don't have it on a hard drive. They don't have the movie in a hard drive. Sorry, they may not. You know what I mean? Like by the way, whatever the caveats are, wherever they're editing
Yeah,
on
everything's
site.
kept in a cloud. They said,
Yeah,
and I'm like, I
and
don't
then
believe that.
they're taken away. I know. I don't know.
I
So
don't. I don't believe.
the synergy isn't there to me because, and this kind of goes to Dick Tracy. So when Dick Tracy came out, Madonna's and Dick Tracy, right?
Right.
Madonna makes an album, right, where she's kind of playing Breathless Mahoney. Do you know? And I don't even know if you know this. That because I only know it because I saw her in an interview. I even want to say it was like It was like a BBC interview. Lady Gaga does a BBC interview and explaining she was on Graham Norton. Someone bootleg Graham Norton
Okay.
threw it on YouTube. She comes out. She has the eye thing. She comes out half as Lady Gaga. She's there with Demi Moore, who was in the Surface or the Substance, which that's a whole other. I can't talk about that. She talks about how she made this album. She made an album in the headspace of Lee, who is her Harley Quinn of Lee. So she made an
Right.
album that
Harley.
came
See?
out a week before this movie. There's no single. There's nothing about it, and it's probably just a very like art house project, and they're just like, I don't know, give her some money to ever record.
Yeah.
But like, come on, man. She had it. And I have no idea if any of the songs. Again, we're in. I think pop music is way different right now. It's a ton of other things. So, but there's nothing. There's not a lead single. There's not. But again, they wanted. Why did they hide? Why is
There's
the
no,
marketing
I don't know, there's no bat
hiding?
dance. There should be a bat dance for this
There's no
movie.
bat dance. You know what's funny? On Stern this week, he had Kamala Harris. So she's a Prince fan, so he plays bat dance when she comes on, and then talks about how Stern thinks the Batman soundtrack is the best Prince album, and in some
Yeah,
ways, it kind of isn't. In certain headspaces, I get it, but no. But she says no too, which
it's
I think is really
it's
funny.
definitely the Prince album I've listened to the most.
But
Does that
back
hurt
then it
you?
was so synergy. No, that's fine. No, that's fine. Like again, again, it's
Everyone, Mark is like the Prince nut. Like he knows
yeah.
everything
I
about
mean,
Prince. And
but
I'm like,
again,
I know Batman.
oh, I can't even talk about the Prince. So someone recently saw the Prince documentary on Netflix, the 9 hours, and they gave it to the estate, and the estate won't put it through. Basically, it seems because there's questionable things about when he met his second, the belly dancer wife. May say he met her at 16 in like Egypt, right? So there's a couple hairy things that are in there. There's also Jill Jones talking about how he was drunk and beat the crap out of her. Not great.
Yeah.
So a couple bad things, and they just don't want him. But the guy won't edit it out necessarily. He won't compromise it. So it's just going to sit for a little bit. I don't know if it's ever going to come out, or maybe it'll get leaked. I'm not sure. It's 9 hours. It's
Nine
nine
hours. I
hours.
want the Kevin Smith Prince documentary too.
There, but see,
Give us
that's the thing
all of
is
them.
Kevin Smith is in this and talks quite a bit about that stuff too. So Kevin Smith is in the
Oh,
is
that's
in this
good.
quite a bit actually. So yeah, so I want to see, but there's 60 people or something. There's roughly 60 people that were interviewed and they're in it. Besides Revolution members, but there's a different take on Prince that people don't know. Like in this, not just the goofball, not the basketball player, like not pancake maker, which is a real thing, and a ping pong player, real thing, basketball player. He would take he had courts whenever he did an arena. He plays basketball for a while and then goes performs for 10 hours. But there's also a thing that, like, I don't know if they get into Elevator. He died in an elevator. His most famous song is about going down to hell in an elevator. It's like,
Right.
like there's so many things. There's so many things that, like, yeah, so I don't know. But you mean to tell me that there's a Lady Gaga album that came out? Warner Bros. Doesn't promote it at all. I don't know if she's even on Warner Brothers. I'm not even sure if she's legally making the album saying anything in there that she is. That she's saying conceptually, I'm Lee made this album, right? It's almost like a Chris Gaines. Uh,
Right.
it's a Chris Gaines situation, right?
Right. Chris Gaines
Where
being the
where
alter ego of Garth Brooks. In
Garth
case
Brooks trying to be Prince.
we got to
Which
inform people too. Let's.
oh man, we got to do a Chris Gaines episode. First off, that album's not too bad actually. And someone, I'm trying to think who covered it recently. Oh, Donald Glover covered one of the song. He did a song a couple years ago. He covered a Chris Gaines song, and I'll
That's
send it to
hilarious.
you.
That's
It's
hilarious.
kind of great. It's great. It's great. And I'm just like, because you think about it, like some of the material, it sounds like look, Garth Brooks, whether you like or not, he's a talented musician. So if he's going to try and do something else, he's still going to have the fundamentals of a song and how you make a song. It's a, 1, 2, 3 bridge.
No,
Come on,
I get
man.
that. I get that.
Come on. But I also think it's really weird that we can't. I got to really dig online, man. Why can't I get that episode of SNL? He performed
Well,
once, did two musical numbers on it. It's not on YouTube. You can't find it. I don't know. I got it. Someone has it. It's not on. You can join Peacock and watch every season, except they clip out things. They clip out a bunch of stuff.
that's the gold.
Always Sunny cut a bunch of episodes recently for racist stuff. So you can't watch
Is that
all
the
Always
Lethal
Sunny stuff.
Weapon? Is that the Lethal Weapon episode? Or
There's a
the
lot of them. There's a good amount of them. Yeah, there's a good. But again, satire or not satire? That's satire. They're literally goofing on something in front of the thing that they're goofing on.
yeah,
Isn't that kind of great? Isn't that South Park? Like I
yeah.
don't even know.
It's funny.
Does Paramount have anything that's not on there? Is there South Park episodes removed from Paramount Plus? Probably.
You, you know what? They should
Because
have a
Family
contract
Guy's not
saying
on
that
there. They're
there's a
very
whole
important to
unaired episode of
Paramount. So I
there's a
would be
whole
I would
unaired
be
episode of Family Guy
surprised.
from early on. It was like When You Wish Upon a Jew, I think was the name of the episode. And it's not anti-Jewish in any way. It's just, a bad title.
Mm.
And I think at one point, like Optimus Prime shows up comes in, transforms, and puts on a little yarmulke.
Oh.
You know, I'm like, that's kind of funny. But that was like the first. That was back before Transformers was popular again. You know, that's like it's like 2000 or something.
I saw
And
a
you know,
clip
only you
on.
and I were like, yay,
Yeah,
Transformers reference.
I saw a clip on of Family Guy recently. I was going to send it to you because it was a musical thing, and it was like, it was a person singing. He's like, and then someone else is going to sing, and with the extra voice is going to make it better. And then kept doing that, and like, then we're going to walk in the crowd, and this makes this average musical better. Ready?
That's a good breakdown.
It's so
Yeah.
funny. It's so good. Yeah, it's so ridiculous. Yeah. So we say so. Okay. So I say so. Hellboy for me. Awestruck by Hellboy. Surprised. And same thing with the Drawing Monsters documentary. Mignola. Rent it. Give him
I'm gonna
$3.
say I was dumbstruck by Joker too,
That's probably the perfect stamp of that,
because
from what I
it
understand.
could have been, the potential's there, but nobody knows what he was going for, and it was no way it was going to make money. It was never going to make money. Even if he had made the Joker movie we wanted, I don't think we would have got. I don't think it would have did good. It's just a weird timing. You know, I don't know what you're doing,
I was
Mark.
trying to mute the cough and I turned the
You
video
muted. You used to call, and then let me blank my face out, but everyone heard you cough. We just got a cough, and and now we can see you but can't hear you. Said that cat again. Hey, your cat, get out of here.
Someone's walking by. My dog's protecting the household, doing such a good job of all the dangerous people on my street.
That's right. Your dog would be out of breath by the time it got down the steps to get that person.
Yeah, it can't get those deer, man, in the backyard. It can't get
The
them.
deer
They
too
know
fast.
now. They now know. Now they stop and they're just like, you ain't getting us.
They're laughing.
They're bluffing out now. They go a little far out and then they don't. You know.
They stroll leisurely and your dog can't catch them. Mark's dog is a little fat. He's a fat dog.
So lastly, the last review media wise is something we agree on. And
let me say one other thing, Mark, about Joker. It's just a funny story. So Terrifier 3 came out this week, which is going to do better than Joker 2. Another maniacal
by my uncle
maniac
Damien
clown.
Leone, who's I'm not related to. Damien Leone's
no relation.
Terrifier 3.
Well, the funny thing about the actor who plays the clown, Art the Clown, he would play Joker in Nightwing fan film. And there's pictures of him doing the Killing Joke pose. So it's just kind of a funny connection. Like, this guy just likes to play clowns, I guess, and played Joker in these fan films. And
yeah, I saw him.
Now Art the Clown.
He was in Town Square, like on a corner, while they had like a big video of like Joker like advertised. He's looking up and he's like laughing at the camera. He's like, which is pretty funny, you know.
It is pretty funny.
Yeah,
and that movie costs nothing and will make so much more. And
because
I've only seen the first.
They're the second one's pretty gory, man. And this one's supposed to be
worse. I haven't watched
the
second one yet. I watched the first one with my wife, and she was like, "Why are we watching this?" I said, "Because," and that's it. But my daughters watched it, and I'm like, "My daughters watched this? Too young." But
it's fun, exploitative. Like it's to me, like it's
no, it is fun. It's fine.
It's fun. It's fun. It's very exploitative. I'm curious about it. I think it's great that's continuing. Like, great. You know what I mean? Like, that's very singular. Whereas I feel like, unfortunately, Eli Roth made Borderlands, where he was kind of in that path where he was doing like, I'm doing my own thing, and now he's like, I'll just take the paycheck. And I also don't understand, like, I just talk about Borderlands for a second, and I don't know if I'll ever see it, but like, you mean to tell me that from the trailer, when they open the hatch, you can see the crew member's arm pulling the hatch up from the little picture. You can't edit that out. You can't pay an effects artist $20 to just like, come on. It's so weird. Right. It's so weird. Like, no one like watched the edit of the trailer and be like, I can see that thing. Like, they left it in. It's so weird. But also, yeah, there's a couple of videos online talk about how troubled the production was and how many different timelines they had to shoot different things. And when they had the Ariana Greenblatt, who plays the girl with the bunny ears,
right?
She's like 2 years older because they had COVID. So in a couple scenes they kept showing her from like the back because you can't show her because she looks so much older. So they have no close-ups on her for giant sequences. There's no close. Wow. It's just all this like, yeah, it's so weird.
She's becoming a star, like playing. You know,
she's all fan favorite. She's basically and there is literally.
She started off what? She was young Gamora, right, in Avengers.
Yeah, and and she's in Barbie.
And then she's young Ahsoka.
Yeah,
like the
so she's lining up
play young next.
She's lining up her autograph for MonsterCons. there's a monster
Yeah.
con in Oaks, PA, and you know who's going to be there, and I feel like it's really weird, and I really feel, I feel, I hope that there's security. Alec Baldwin is going to be there on a Saturday, like 3 weeks from now,
Wow.
in Oaks, PA, where like RetroCon normally is at the Oaks Center, where they have all the gun
Yeah.
shows and RV shows. Um, but Gina Davis is going to be there too, so it's the only time ever the Maitlands have ever been together to sign
Wow.
anything. So, but I'm like, how much are they paying Alec Baldwin? Number one, and what jackass is going to be like, hey, didn't you shoot somebody? Like
Ugh.
I don't want, like, for his sake, I don't know, because remember, you can just go to YouTube and pull up angry Alec Baldwin against paparazzi, like punching them out, calling his
Mhm.
daughter. That's a very bad call that she released, right?
She released. Yeah.
She
Bad move.
released it. That's okay. Well, even this week, Tom Cruise's daughter, she did a sorority thing, and she like says she's like not that she didn't. Cruz is not her last name. They have like to say your name or whatever, and she didn't say Cruz. So anyway, but yeah, there's a lot of
What's her?
weirdness to
What's
that.
her? Is it her mom's name? Is it Holmes?
I think so. Yeah, I think she said it as that. Yeah, it was Surrey Holmes. So yeah, he's not. I
Huh.
mean, I can't imagine that he'd be a fantastic father. So I don't know.
He is.
He's
He's an
very
adopted
busy.
son too, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's a great joke. It was a Saturday Night Live joke. I don't know if it was Norm Macdonald, but there was a great joke when him and Nicole Kidman, might have been Dennis Miller, where they say like Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise are separated this week, and they said, and their children were returned to the Paramount props department. It's one of the best jokes ever. It's a very dry. I gotta see if I can find it. I'll see if I can find it. If it's a McDonald, I think it may be. I'm not sure. It might have been before that. It might have been a Dennis Miller, or I don't know if it was Kevin Neal. I don't know if he has the chops for that. So speaking of local, we talked about Nick Dragata, local, Elmer, New
Yeah.
Jersey resident.
Yep.
The next show, telemedia, we want to talk about essentially is Cherry Hill native Kristen Milioti. Kristen
Yeah.
Milioti. Very South Jersey looking Italian girl, very funny.
Yeah.
Been in a ton of things, and her favorite role, which is role you just talked to me about, is on 30 Rock. She talked recently on an interview where that's her favorite role she's ever done of all time, because she learned a lot from Tina Fey about how to like commit to the bit, and she does that more so after that, like every role she's done since. But that role
She is.
informed her to do more things like that, which this Sofia Falcone concept, which she's in Long Halloween, Tim Sale callback, Jeph
Right.
Loeb callback, very frightening in Dark Victory, horribly frightening, and this is scarier. She's scarier in this. She's frightening in this.
Yeah.
Um,
Because you can't read her, and that makes her super interesting. And other people, she makes other people very nervous and uncomfortable, and that's a really good acting trait that she can do that.
yeah, and I'm really blown away with the Colin Farrell situation, and I also think this is the most unique situation. You're under you're under people makeup, right? So you can go to John Hurt, Elephant Man, right? That's this. You
Mhm.
can go to Mask from Eric Stoltz Mask. Okay, that's that, right? Uh, uh, Not really Frankenstein per se, but like maybe a little bit early Frankenstein. Is that Bela Lugosi? So like you've never
No.
seen someone look like a human like this, right? He's not Colin Farrell. It's unrecognizable. Even his
No.
eyes are so different by the lids, whatever they do. It's not a thing. I can't in a million years. But to
Boris.
me,
I'm sorry. It's Boris Karloff was Frankenstein. I had to
okay,
just.
there you go. Thank you. Yes, please.
Some people
I
get really angry
don't
at that.
Bela Lugosi Dracula, right? So maybe I'm wrong there. No, I'm right. But the like
No, he is.
it's it's bizarre, and I commit so heavily to this penguin. It's unbelievable, and that fast. End of episode 1. I'm like, oh my god. I think I liked it the most in the movie. I think I got it when he's being tied when he's tied up, and
Right.
Gordon and Batman start talking to him. He's like, you guys don't even know what you're doing. Like, I love it. Like, I think that's the best scene, because I'm just like, oh, he has it more together than these two characters, and he does. Like,
Yeah.
he's playing everybody.
You
It's
can't get a good
scary.
read on him. Like,
It's
is
scary.
he super smart? Is he dumb? Is it luck? We
Yes.
don't. It's a little bit of everything, and that's what makes him so
He's dumb.
interesting.
He has a plum. I forget what kind of car that is, but like, yeah, it's like I don't know what kind of car. It's beautiful. But
It's
and she even
beautiful.
said, she's like, why are you driving this around? We all know who it's you. We all know you left this scene. This is very flashy. What are you doing? It has gold rims. It's a plum car with gold rims. Don't drive this around, you know. And I don't know who this kid is, man. I thought he kind of annoyed me in the first episode, but I think he's great.
He's good. He was in Runaways. He was in all 3 seasons of the
Oh
Runaways show,
yeah.
based off the Marvel Incredible
Yes.
comic. He played a, I forget the character's name. It's been a while since I read Runaways.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was in that, and you believe that he stutters. Like, he does it good. It's not overdone.
Yeah, it's a natural. It's more of a natural concepted stutter and the nervousness and the I don't know. He plays around a little bit. It's
You can
intense.
see when it gets worse, when he's nervous, and when he's a little calm, it's a little better.
Yeah, episode
But
3, I try to put I think episode 3 was the best where you put yourself in his shoes. I'm like, I don't know what I would do.
holy
I should
crap,
leave.
that's
I should leave,
a
right?
great beginning, great ending.
Right. I should
Yeah.
leave.
What do you do? Well, that's because we follow our hearts and not our brains.
Yeah, but
At
I don't know if I could have
the heart
left.
ending.
I don't know if I could have
It's
left. I don't know. It's too much. It's so much. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, everything seems to kind of just really, really pop and work in it all around. And it's on Mondays. I'm confused. I guess I
Sundays.
was mad. I was mad about
It's
it.
on tonight.
Okay. I think I talked to you about it because we saw Transformers. You talked about episode 1. I didn't watch it yet. And then because that came out on a Thursday, and then the new one wasn't until like the following week. So when I thought I was ready to watch it, I was going to watch 3, and I watched 2, and I was a little mad. I was like, man. But watching 2, first one's like an hour and 20. The new one I think was almost an hour 10. They're like little mini movies. 3 was a movie. 3 was a great
Yeah.
movie, by the way. Like it was. But it is funny, like how every character actor who's been different mafia people are just in different things, you know. So like the one
Right.
guy is
Just
Johnny
keep.
Vitti is like is oh I've seen him in this and that, and I was like okay. So yeah, I'm not sure. And Clancy Brown showing up was pretty fun too.
You
Uh,
always got to love Clancy Brown, man.
yeah, now he's in DC Universe, right? We always wanted Clancy Brown as what, Sabretooth, right?
Sabretooth back in the '90s. He would have been an awesome Sabretooth.
He was the casting, and so was Rutger Hauer. Rutger Hauer was always Magneto in our heads, and
Yeah. Also, Cable, but Magneto too.
I always said Brian Dennehy because I always thought like the part in Cocoon where he pulls his eye down. He's got the Flash, because he's got a big.
But Clancy Brown was also he was already in DC because he was Lex Luthor on Superman animated.
Okay. Okay. That's right. Yeah. And then oh man, it just left me. Oh, he's in Ahsoka, right? Or he's in I think he's in Ahsoka. He's like a senator or something like that. I want to say he's in that.
Right.
So, okay. Yeah, so that's good. So, all struck on that. First one good, second one okay, third one great. So, yeah, we'll see. That's 8 episodes.
I think so.
And then I guess
But
when this came out, like Terrence Winter talked about how they almost had a Gotham Central that was supposed to be that, and then it evolved into this. That didn't happen. The Gotham Central didn't
no,
happen.
I was surprised that we haven't seen Gordon yet, to be honest. Because there was talks of like him having that show or like a Gotham Central. I don't know, but this show's great. Everyone seems to like it. It's just sad that we're not getting the Batman movie for another 2 years. Is it 2026 or 27?
I don't know. Like to me, the movies take so long in between stuff, and I'm not really sure. And I think that Rob Bat just does so many weird things. He's doing the new Bong Joon-ho movie, and I don't know if you saw that trailer yet. I know Brian saw it, and it's odd. And he's doing another weird accent. And I mean, he's a very fascinating actor. But I also think it's funny because he's such a dry humor. Do you remember during COVID when he's like, I just let myself go? Like no one knew if he was serious because he just goofs. Like he's just a goofy British guy. And the way he sounds, like he was on an interview and they're just like, oh, so you still training and stuff? Like you haven't shot. Batman shut down. He's like, nope, got fat. And it's like, oh my God. And everyone's like freaking out. And then like that wasn't true, so I don't know. He's very strange.
We were all waiting so somebody could claim online. Oh, look, it's Fattinson. People are just waiting to make that joke.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I like Rob Bat. I think that's the best one. Weekly Planet coined that one. That's my favorite. There's a couple T-shirts. You can go on TeePublic and get that. And it's like Batman with a bat and everything like that. It's really funny.
Which means Walt might own it. Our friend Walt has a T-shirt collection that we've never seen him with the same shirt.
Yeah, he should have my closet. My closet's perfect for that. Like that huge closet. So lastly, We'll go about each week. We
He,
we talk usually a couple times a week, and then we all get into something, right? So I get in and it's down the rabbit hole. In this case, down the PACO rabbit hole. PACO rabbit being a Prince reference. Um, I seem to have this weird obsession with people scanning in British reprints of the 80s, late 70s, early 80s. So they'll pop a bunch of stuff collected together in theme. So last week,
mhm.
2 weeks ago, Future Tense came out. Future Tense was like 11 issues. So in Britain, they just put it on the newsstands. It's like 10. It was like, it wasn't very expensive at all. It's like 20 pages. It's like 3 or 4 pages per. So I think Future Tense was like Micronauts, ROM. It was kind of up the alley. There's a war one too, which has a bunch of weird stuff. But the one this week, what was the one this week that I just was looking at last night? Um, and the reason I like it so much is because of the way that they're like you talked about. Cliff Rathburn did gray tones in Walking Dead, all black and white. These are color comic books, color stripped away, and then no credits on this thing, no credits for anything. Uh, Someone's going in and doing like zip tones or doing like shades. And so the one that I'm looking at now, let me see here.
Zip Tony's not easy. That is a.
No, yeah.
You know,
So
it's
the
funny.
one
Eric
right
Larson.
now,
Not to interrupt you while you're thinking, but he said he just found a whole box of zip tones, and he's like, "Should I throw them away?" He's like, "No, I'm just going to use them." Even though you can do those effects in Photoshop now very easily,
mhm.
he's like, "Nope, I'm just going to cut and paste." Cut and so he's
Yeah,
using real zip tones in the Savage Dragon.
I'm trying to think who figured out a trick for it. Where, man, I forget how they did. I think what they did, I don't remember who did this. Where they actually, so they cut out the board. They would cut out the piece that they wanted, and then they put a page of zip down, and then they just plop the art on top. So literally, the original art pages have holes in them, which is kind of
Oh, well,
freaky for us, right?
yeah,
So like,
yeah.
uh, but he's like, oh, I'm not. It's too expensive. I don't know if it was an anchor or what. I forget. I'll have to dig around and think about who that was. But think about that. So you have an original 11 by 17. The guy's drawing a page, and he's like, I want to do this shading here. I'll just I'll just take an X-Acto knife and then cut that leg
Ooh.
out, and then I just lay it on top and then tape it or so. I don't know. I don't know exactly how, or maybe Photoshop. I don't remember exactly how. So this week, someone put up Marvel Action, right? Which I'm a little mad, and I knew a little bit about this because you would see the what was the GI Joe in England? Action Force.
Yeah,
So they would do GI Joe reprints over there, but they would do uh, original covers that were either by like Del Barris, Brian Hitch. There was always a lot of people doing the covers over there. Liam Sharp, like there was always a lot, and then Transformers had a whole other separate thing. Now, in some of these, they
right.
did backups.
Now these were they released bi-weekly? I think
Might have,
Britain, the UK does a
yeah.
lot of. They do a lot of weekly magazines. They're magazine size. So not only are they, changing some color books to black and white, they're increasing the size to magazine. And they put about half the story in, but then they'll put in a backup that
That's
might be new,
less. Right. Yeah, they did
along with,
Rampage and Hulk. There's some
right.
backups. But the ones that I'm looking at here,
And this was
somebody
Marvel.
scanned
This
Marvel.
was
Yeah, it's
Marvel
Marvel
UK.
UK,
It was a separate
and
office.
that's Paul Neary. Technically, was that still in early '80s before he did Marvel UK proper like actual publication in Deset 2, 92. So Valor was Thor, Doctor Strange, Conan, and Devil Dinosaur, 80 to 81, right?
Right.
And then, but what's kind of what we miss over here is they didn't have fun stuff. So I think Captain Britain one had like a Captain Britain mask cutout you can get, and they would come with stuff. So like the Valor came with a Devil Dinosaur jigsaw. Now I'm not sure. I have to look through because the scans even have the jigsaw piece, right? It's not even, it's just a square. I don't even know what they call it, jigsaw, but like it's not a jigsaw. But I
Right.
want to see if it even print because some of these only went like 10, 11 issues. Like Marvel Action went to 15. One of the ones, Future Tense, didn't finish some storylines. They had like Micronauts in the middle of the story. They just like there was no next issue. It just didn't, never happened. But Marvel Action had a sticker, superhero sticker. But the covers a lot of times were just either like the Future Tense is my favorite one because Future Tense is a Steranko, Nick Fury, there's no Nick Fury story in that at all. But it's colored in a weird like 3 or 4 color process. So yeah, I think I want to buy these potentially and then hang them up or something just because they're just odd.
No, that'll look really neat.
Yeah,
Mark has a bunch of comics hanging around his living room. Being that he's not married, he can do whatever he wants to with his house.
Yeah, probably why I'm
Toys,
divorced.
comics.
Right. Partially why I'm divorced, probably. But yeah, because I have what do I have? I framed the speaking of the JRJR, it's the Cable Blood and Metal like ad, which is about a little larger than comic book double size, right? It was like I don't know.
Right. It's
And I
a
had to find
promotional
that.
poster, and it's
Not
gorgeous.
printed anywhere. Never.
No.
It's nowhere. Nope. And the only thing that I want to see if I can do is the recoloring of the JRJR center spread. It was in a Wizard magazine. Someone colored it. It was brown. I have that, but it's not that good. But the recoloring last year of the JRJR, huge, gigantic, almost like absolute Batman size Cable with 2 guns. The recoloring, they decided to color the guns black.
That was a neat choice.
I love it. And it's like almost like a spray paint. And then that was just on like it was on like a hidden gem cover or whatever. It was 1 in 50, I think. But I want to see if I can get that printed somehow. I don't know if I can get that legally printed or whatever. But they didn't make a poster of it. But the other thing, I think I just lost my train of thought. Happens.
You would have to go to Staples for that now, right? There's no Kinko's.
I think so. Yeah, I think I might be able to get it over there. But yeah, so finding some of that, but there is no.
And then you got to tell them that you drew it. Got to tell them, oh, I drew this. It's cool.
Yeah, I drew this. It says Marvel Comics in it. But I also dislike that last year they had a Cable miniseries, and I think that's what it was. I think this was number 1. This was a variant cover. It was a hidden gem, and they put that on the cover of the trade that came out like 3 weeks ago. And the Scott Eaton or somebody drew the inside. I'm like, no. Like I was like, you can't take this drawing from like 1995 or whatever, like whatever it was. No.
Interesting story.
Bad.
Liefeld was going to do a Cable miniseries for Marvel this year called First Contact, where it's the story of like where Professor X gets his technology from to do the Danger Room. Was like, oh yeah, it's from Cable in the future. Like Cable met the original X-Men. And I'm like, that's a really neat story. And him and CB Cebulski had it all planned out. Well, CB Cebulski goes on vacation, and then like one of his lower people who probably don't love Liefeld just gave Fabian Nicieza the green flag to do a Cable miniseries, and that really like kind of pissed Liefeld off because like he wanted that opening of no Cable series for a while. So when he does his series, people want it, And he was like, CB Cebulski, like, I didn't know they did that. I'm sorry, contracts were signed. It was all kind of like not behind his back, but he wasn't made aware of it. And if you read that Cable miniseries, I don't want to say bad things. It wasn't bad. It was just, not anything new or exciting. It was fine.
Yeah, all of the new retro miniseries.
But that made Liefeld pissed because he was doing Cable and then he was doing Major X. And then he was like a Major X sequel. And I guess he made the decision, you know what? I'm out. Let me do this. There's a Deadpool movie coming, which he spent a lot of time promoting. He really worked his ass off promoting that movie. So he said, let me do a Deadpool thing. Let me throw Chris Star in it. Cable, Wolverine, Major X, they're all going to be in it. So it's kind of his swan song for Marvel.
Right.
And that's why they launched, and that's why they announced Youngblood this week, because this is what I'm doing. This is extreme. Right away yesterday, he's like, oh, taking meetings for the Youngblood movie. Well, of course there's going to be a Youngblood movie because that's the big Image comic. That launched Image comic.
Yeah, I think that's it should always be there. It should always be like it should always be there. Like period. Even when it went to like Awesome and stuff, I never loved it. I never loved when things would go away, then come back like a full bleed pit. It should, like just come on, or Top Cow. I never loved it when they went over to the side, and then they.
No, you love the Image family. You just want it good. You did. You just want everything to be together. You don't want mom and dad to get divorced. You want it.
Right.
You want it. Everything together. Like we were saying. And even though he did great books, like when Awesome was a really great company he formed, but like Like, oh, I still would rather had, everything still be an image. You're right.
So if the rights are if he has Supreme back, can they do something? Can they like bring and reprint Supreme? There's no good
He
copies of
is.
Supreme reprints.
There's not.
Yeah.
There's a really good Twitter page. I think it's called Maximum Supreme, and that dude's like he just scanned the Supreme comics and like here's Supreme from day one. He hasn't gotten to the
Right.
Alan Moore stuff yet, but that's
Mm.
that's they're really good scans. That dude's putting the work in. But you can't get Supreme anywhere else. There's no trades. You're right. There was a trade of the Supreme Madness story, and that's pretty good. And they made trades of the Alan Moore stuff, but they're really low quality. Like they were
That's like
bad scans.
Checker or something like that.
Yeah,
Did
right.
Checker do
Checker
that?
Publications. They also
Yeah.
collected that Judgment Day story. I think you're going to get everything. Like the way Liefeld's talking, he's like, "Oh, I want to finish Bloodsport. I want to do the Vault edition showcasing the original art," which I think is all owned by Kirkman, by the way. That's basically a Kirkman.
Oh, wow, okay.
He bought everything early image. He's like us, but rich.
Yeah, I wish
So
that
rich.
there's a Kill Raven in a drawer, right? There's a Kill Raven complete 6-issue series that Kirkman
Yeah,
wrote and Liefeld drew, and it's in a drawer.
in a drawer, just sitting there. Like there's stuff like that
Do
that
they
we
care
don't know
anymore?
about.
Can we do like an online petition or something like that? Can we make that a thing? Do they care? Does Marvel care? I
CB
don't know if they
Cebulski
care.
cares, but the people above him won't do it. Like you're editor in chief, CB, and you can't make it happen because he's buddies with Liefeld. You know.
Mm.
In fact, when I was on the old, we called it the Awesome Army Online. It was a Yahoo group back in the late '90s, and CB Cebulski was on there. Just another fan, all talking about, awesome comics. Jeph Loeb was on there. Liefeld would show up there.
Mm.
Back before like Facebook and all that stuff. We were doing the message board, and I was not an internet savvy guy. I had a web TV. Remember web TV? You
Web
just
TV.
little computer
Yeah.
you hook up to your TV. Garbage. Couldn't watch videos. Do
Right.
anything with it.
Right. I think I tried
I
to
could.
figure out some way to like have comics on my TV, and it was just a lot of process for not a whole lot of reward. It was
Yeah.
like a lot, and then it was like, okay, there you go. There was a lot of stuff I think early. It's a shame that DC Universe uh, app didn't work. That original DC thing where they had Stargirl on the streaming platform, they had DC Universe, and they
Oh
formatted to
yeah.
TV, and it was cool. Like they demoed a Batman one, it was great, and then that just went away, and then it became the DC Online as it is now, which is fine, which is it's still very very good, the Ultra.
Yeah. So yeah. They're both good. The Marvel and DC Online apps are pretty good.
Yeah.
I was trying to look through some old Spectacular Spider-Mans and like, oh, they got big holes in their run. I'm like, that's
The Punisher is the worst. Punisher is the worst situation. Punisher through. It seems like they only put stuff online when they I guess that makes sense. When they do a trade collection, they'll plop it online. So there was some type of Ghost Rider collection this like 2 weeks ago. It was the Danny Ketch omnibus. So the issues of Ghost Rider, the crossovers into Punisher War Journal, they showed up. But if you look at Punisher War Journal, it's like 1 to 4. Um, 36, 37. Like it's so weird. Like there's just nothing. And then I think all of
it
one
doesn't
of the
jump the Wolverine issues, does it?
maybe I'm not sure. No, I
That's
yeah, I
just,
don't know. But a ton of the Punishers, because again, the Punishers when the Mike Baron Punishers from like issue 2 to like 50, some mega violence in those things, man. So I don't think you can print those today. Like there's some major
yeah, but
stuff.
there's no blood. It's all blacked out, right?
Yeah, it's all about it, but it's like there's he just blows up buildings all the time. Like it's kind of nuts. So I don't know. It's fine. It was great. I think they're all really good. I think a ton of the Mike Baron stuff right in that timeline is wonderful. Um, but yeah, the Punisher is the worst catalog on there all around. No Max stuff on there. Come on, you know what I
Really? And
mean?
that's available. And that's
Zero.
like, see, I get when you
The
have to
DC app
find.
has it has Vertigo, Sandman. You would think that they would keep stuff out. I remember when the app first came out, it was a little cumbersome because they would put stuff up. They have the whole thing up there. I remember I was rereading Long Halloween. All we do is talk about Long Halloween on this one. But
Yes.
I think I told you this. I called you. They took it down. They left one up. And then like when you go through, they're like, you can buy it over here. You can pay for. I'm like, I just gave you $12.99 a month or whatever it was at the time. Like, what are you talking about? So,
Yeah.
and then
If it's
then
old, it should
it's
just stay
all
up.
there. Now it's all there. And if you get
You know,
Ultra, I think it's 1 month. It's 1 month difference.
I
1 month.
feel like they
So
took
that's pretty
Sandman off
nuts.
for a while.
They did. They did. They'd have the first 8 issues. That's it. But now everything is up. Tons and tons and
Like if you're
tons.
printing it digitally, like everything's digital now, it should be
Their
easy to
search is
put that
pretty
on
good
there.
too. Yeah, the search in there is better than DC, or I'm sorry, Marvel had they rearranged it. It used to be easier. It used to be easier to find stuff in the Marvel app. It's not now. You search and it just gives you like stuff. And then you have to go and you have to switch it to publication order and switch it. It's so hard. It's no good.
Those
And the
those apps are
indexes
just
are not good. Yeah.
they're pure profit because you're already making your money off the printed comic. You know, all
Yeah,
your money's
digital
made off
didn't
printed.
kill anything. Digital only helped, really,
Helps helps old men,
helps old men.
and
I can't see.
can't see.
I can't see.
It's funny.
So
I have good vision. I still just prefer it. You know.
it's the backlighting of it is something. The fact that we, again, when I said I went to Urgent Care the other day, I had to take like a paper. Are you kidding me? Like I took my charger and like was charging my iPad. I was there. Like I couldn't do it because I need access to like 50 comics, 100 comics. Like I can't because my ADD brain has to read. Oh, I don't want to read this now. I want to read this, and I got to go read that. So that's no good. So what was your rabbit hole thing that you were
You know,
what are you in now?
I did start reading Irredeemable, which I really really enjoy, but I had to stop reading it because it crossed over with Incorruptible. So I'm like, oh, now I got to go read X amount of Incorruptible. It's Mark Waid. It's a Mark Waid comic, early boom.
Mm,
Peter Krause drew a lot of it in the beginning, who's famous for us for drawing Power Shazam when Jerry
yeah,
Ordway wrote that book. Um, and it's an evil Superman. You know, it's an archetype that probably every comic writer wannabe, myself included, has. You know, it's just an easy thing to do. But Mark Waid does it in an interesting way. Um, the storytelling's good, the art's good. There's surprises in it. But that's not the book I want to talk about. I
right.
got, of course, we've been fans of Daniel Warren Johnson for quite a few years. I think I started reading him with Extremity because I'm like, oh, it's like extreme. Like, let me check this out. And he just won me over. And most famously, and we'll talk about this in more detail in the future, he's the Transformers writer. And he's just incredible at Transformers. So Image put out a book called Space Mullet. And I'm like, well, and he's like, this is real early. It's garbage. Nobody, be careful when you read it. And I got 3 issues in. I'm like, this is fantastic. This is your first
It's
book,
really
like your
fun.
first major
Yeah,
release. Like, I care about your characters. I shouldn't like him. It's a dude with a mustache and a mullet, but I love him. The alien he's partners with, I love him. I'm like, he knows how to make you love characters. It's a sci-fi
yeah,
book, and sci-fi can be real boring in comics because sci-fi is kind of made for movies, and in comics it just doesn't. It's got to be really good to work. Sci-fi can be a real lazy writer's easy thing to do, but he's not lazy, and he of course draws it. And for his first time out as a major creator, it's good. Thumbs up.
it's two
Excited to
color,
finish reading it.
right? Isn't there like
What's up?
isn't just like an extra? It's black and white and blue.
Like,
Isn't
yeah,
there like
yeah,
one or two? Yeah.
yeah.
So
Like a
that's
blue
fun.
screen. It is fun. He is like creator of the year.
Yeah,
He's a
Murder
cartoonist
Falcon
because
is
he
what
does
got
both.
me, and then I had to go back and read Extremity.
Okay.
And yeah, Murder Falcon. It was like I think I grabbed the first because the cover was so weird because it's like looks like a it's a falcon that looks like a man with muscles and like and a guitar. I don't understand. I was like, what is this? I bought that. I gave that to my brother too.
Yeah.
I was something. I was like, I don't, this is so weird. This is so crazy. Like, here's a bunch of stuff. Here's a bunch of 80s sensibility. Here's metal. And then there's this guy's playing the guitar and then he's bringing this thing and then they're going to go to another dimension in their van. Right? It's like it's so it's just there's a lot of stuff and when we talked about Dragata earlier, like the page construction, where are you coming up with this? I don't understand this. Like, he says he quotes Harron. There was an interview with him on something recently online, and it was basically just talking about um there's so much manga that we have no exposure to. We're too old, I guess.
Correct.
I don't know. But his page construction is nuts. His page construction is very because he's like, I'm gonna do this little panel here, I'm gonna do this. And what I think is interesting is that it's so he inks really heavily and he's not trying to make people picturesque. The Wonder Woman miniseries he did, Wonder Woman was in some places just ugly, just like rough.
Yeah.
but it's great because she's worn.
She's
And
worn. She's
same
old.
thing with
It's
this.
that. Is it
They're
Dead
all
Earth?
grizzled.
Is it Wonder
Dead
Woman
Earth,
Dead Earth?
yeah.
Yeah. A
Yeah,
call back
Superman's
to
dead.
the series of annuals from the 90s for
Oh
DC.
yeah,
Remember?
yeah.
Like
Of
every
course, it's Dead
annual
Earth.
was.
Yeah, all
But
future stories. We love it. You
all
know what I
features.
mean? Like
I do.
that's yeah.
I love Elseworlds. Thanks, Mark Waid, for creating Elseworlds.
Right, exactly. But he won't take credit for it. Good job. You know what I
Good
mean?
job.
Not like Roy Thomas. Not like Roy Thomas.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like DC was doing imaginary stories in the 50s and 60s, but
They called him that. That's what's so crazy. Yeah, I mean that's the funny thing too is they would make it up. They would tell you they're like, yeah, we want to write this, but this isn't going to fit everything else. So let's just tell you it's an imaginary story. They put out trades for it, which I think is kind of cool. Like in
yeah,
the
they're
2000s, they're like
they're
a
some of my
couple of
favorite
them.
stories.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, they're what ifs basically. You know what I mean? Then Marvel would do the what
before
ifs.
before what is, yeah.
But Marvel, if you think about it, the way that Marvel continuity, and that's why like it was so whatever event happened counts, and it just continues to count. You know.
Marvel
So
tried
Death of
something.
Gwen Stacy, it's continue. You know.
Marvel's, what did they call it? The Alternaverse. They tried to make some mouthful their own version of Elseworlds at one point in the 90s. I think they tried to call it like the Alternaverse or something.
Yeah.
They labeled
Yeah.
a couple books with it, and then they're like, "This is dumb."
A couple years ago,
You
they
know?
tried to do it with Life Story, and then they just didn't commit to it. And then they had two books. It was Super Spider-Man Life Story, which was pretty good. I think it was pretty good.
It
I
is
think with
pretty
the
good.
annual, it's also really weird the way they published that because they put it out, 6 issues or whatever, put out the trade, then they put out like an annual, like a year later. And it was
Yeah.
like then they had to reprint the trade. The new trade now has the extra annual, which is cool. And they did I think what's his name? The guy who did Flintstones did
Is
Fantastic
it
Four
is it Mark Russell,
Life Story. Yeah, but that I
or is it?
think is. I wonder if they're gonna do a lot of take a lot from that for the movie, because I think that's really like really ground level. You know,
Yeah.
I think that's pretty solid. So
Michel Fife had pitched a version of Spider-Man Life Story. Life Story?
yeah, I think it's Life Story. Yeah.
Okay. He had pitched a version of that, and it looked really cool. Yeah, he put up a couple pages, and I'm like, because I'm a big fan of Michel Fife,
Hmm.
and that looked really good. But Marvel didn't go with it because I think that was after Pisker had done his X-Men Grand Design, but before Sholey had done his Fantastic Four Grand Design. So they
Right.
said no to Fife. And then of course you get the Mark Bagley, Chip Zdarsky, right? He wrote that, and he
Mhm.
did a really good job of that. Mark Bagley's retired. Did you know that?
No.
He retired. Yeah, he says he's done doing comics. He'll keep doing covers and stuff, but he's done like doing hardcore monthly books.
Oh wow. Even a couple years ago, he was doing something amazing that was good, real solid.
No, he's still solid.
So, yeah.
He's I think he's 67. He's an interesting guy. I was just listening to an interview with him, and like he seems like a type of dude who's always ready for a fight. He's a
Wow.
little guy, but I guess he grew up in like Atlanta. And he's always like he's telling these stories like, and this guy comes up to me and I'm ready to fight him, and this other guy comes up to me and I'm ready to fight him. Like how many dudes are you ready to
Wow.
fight, dude? He
Right.
was
Right.
he was kind of a jerk to Brian, our friend Brian. We were at we were at that same Ultimate signing we were talking about earlier,
Mm.
and Brian's like, "Hey, do you work in the Marvel bullpen?" He's like, "Yeah, I drive all the way up from Georgia to work in the Marvel bullpen." But then it was just kind of funny. And then when I met him a couple years ago, he was in line to get in New York, and I'm like, "Mark Bagley?" He's like, "Yeah," and he was totally cool to talk to. And he had said he wanted to go back to drawing Spider-Man because you hadn't drawn
Mm.
Spider-Man enough. I'm like, "You don't count Ultimate Spider-Man?" He's like, "Nope." He goes, "That's not Spider-Man. That's a different Spider-Man."
Hmm.
I'm like, "All right."
Interesting.
Who's against more Mark Bagley Spider-Man? He's probably the artist to have drawn that character the most. You
Yeah.
know?
Well, I wonder if JRJR is eclipsing him now. I wonder what the JRJR number is now.
It's a
Because
good question.
oh, there's so many issues of that. And then he went back and did the like Peter Parker Spider-Man for a while, and then I mean he never left. Dusk was that the dark?
Yeah, I like that. The
Yeah,
Slingers. The
yeah,
Slingers.
yeah. We'll have to talk about alternate heroes. You know, which starts with Nomad, maybe. Is
Well,
that
when
the
Captain
first?
America became Nomad.
Yeah, I just found that in a dollar bin. I have that. I have the first note. I can't believe I have it. It says it on the cover. It's a Gil Kane cover. He's like jump, and it's like, how is this in a dollar bin, man? Those dollar bins out there, I love it. we'll have to talk about. Yeah, so I guess forthcoming, we want to cover my decollecting. So
Okay.
taking like more than halving my collection, maybe even more than that. Um, and then 2 weeks ago, I was wondering how I was going to put my collection together right after Baltimore, and then I just split up my collection, very very high fidelity size, like style, right? There's a part where the one guy goes over John Cusack's character's house, and he's like, What are these stacks? What is this? It's not chronologically. It's not this." And he did his collection it was autobiographically. Like it was like from the story. I got this at this stage and that, and it was all sorts of and how
Right.
they connect.
That's interesting because
So mine, yeah.
you know,
How do you
before
have
you
your
tell,
collection? You only have a couple hundred comics, is that right?
yeah, I went from probably 30 to 35,000 down to like less than 1,000. I decimated it. Um, but it's fine because I kept everything that's special. I was just buying everything, and you know, I just kept I just kept the stuff that's really special to me. And that's a lot of stuff I bought in the 80s and 90s because those are the books I read the most. And I just enjoy going back and rereading them. And the Marvel and DC apps really help with just like, you know, I don't need to own this. You know what happened? I was reading and I was still buying Amazing Spider-Man, and it got to a point where the cover quality almost seemed less than the interiors, and
Yeah,
it
it got a
just
little
looked
thin. Sure.
like I felt like when you read a comic, what the ink was printed into the paper in a way that you felt like it was a real book. But then I was reading this Amazing Spider-Man, and I felt like the ink was just laying on the page, like you had gone and printed it yourself. And I'm like, I don't like this. It doesn't feel like a real comic. It feels fake. Like I don't want to knock Kablam, but I felt like I just went and got it like a printed at like a Kablam printer, you know?
Right, right, right. But you know you're getting there. You're getting that, and that's okay. That's what you want.
Yeah, it's
You know,
fine.
it's
It's what you
print
want.
on demand.
It's the only
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, you can't. You know, if if you're only printing a couple hundred copies or less than that, yeah, you go to a small printer like that. So, but then I was just enjoying the Marvel and DC app so much, and Comixology. I had a
Mhm.
ton of comics on Comixology, but now that's like a joke. You know, you
Yeah,
gotta.
that just
I don't
destroyed
have a Kindle.
itself.
Yeah,
Right. It just
but the Marvel
destroyed
DC
itself.
apps are just they're thumbs up, and I just enjoy it that way. So it's like, and I kept moving and moving 100 boxes of comics and you know 50 more magazine boxes. It's not fun,
Right. Yeah,
but I
that
do have a
definitely that
decent.
definitely does it. That definitely kills it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So 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 you and I know, especially the first 5 or 10 years of collecting. I could probably tell you where I bought every comic and a story,
Oh
almost a
yeah.
story behind it.
Hmm.
You know, and then but you so having your stuff by autobiography like the movie is funny. But how do you have yours now? Yours is by
So mine literally is by pretty much artist or writer artist. Like it's pretty much like I only have right now I have three complete runs. I think they're all S's. Sandman Mystery Theater, Starman, and Stray Bullets. Three S's. That's it. That's all I have of that. Now, in the collection itself, I literally have it alphabetical from like Art Adams to Bruzik. Probably it's probably right. Bruzik, because I'll have Zone Continuum, right, which is independent. Atlas from Dark Horse, which I believe was after his Thor run. So I have it chronologically by creator. So that actually makes it really fun. So if you go to my Kelly Jones, I have like Chrome, Terraformers. No, I have Micronauts. So Micronauts New Voyages, right?
hmm,
Which is actually one of the Micronauts New Voyages #2, which had an Art Adams cover. It's one of my first issues I've read in my life. Probably learned how to read reading that book. Um, which was not a Bill Mantlo. I believe that's Peter Gillis, but it had Kelly Jones interior, and Kelly Jones used to ink Butch Geist. That's how he started. And then they were like, you just got to draw the book now. Like that's it. Then he did some indies. So he did Chrome, Terraformers, and then I think then it goes to like Dead Man, the first one, and then I have a couple issues of Action Comics. He drew Dead Man and Action Comics Weekly.
right?
The second Dead Man, um, and then it goes into like the Batman, his like main run of Batman, not really the covers. Uh, like the 13th Son, right? Like Crusades. Like so I'm gonna have the whole
Yeah,
run, but
yeah.
I'll grab some stuff here and there, and it's like because I
Don't
just
forget
want
the
a
hammer.
piece of it. The hammer, right? Yeah, hammer. I think I have a hammer Uncle like the Uncle Alex one shot. So like I have a lot of it, and it was kind of I think that's the Kelly Jones is probably the most because he even did an annual last year. his Swamp Thing that he did with Len Wein a few years
Oh yeah,
back. The
yeah,
bat,
Beast back. That was really good.
great, great, and
He draws it. I love a Swamp Thing. He drew Swamp Thing in that
his
one
Swamp Thing is
Batman
great.
issue
Yep.
with that Dogman trope. I just love that issue. Really good
Yeah,
coloring on that.
that's yeah, that's Greg Wright. I think Greg Wright
It
separating.
felt like Greg Wright. Greg Wright, one of the best colorists of the '90s. Good writer too. Like
Yeah, he was kind of the orchestrator of the later Midnight Sun stuff. Like he was pretty much writing all that stuff, you know.
he wrote that Wolverine Punisher miniseries. Who drew that?
Is it
It
Gary?
wasn't Winslade. Was it
Is it
Gary
Gary?
Erskine?
Gary Erskine, yeah.
That was supposed to be drawn by Jim Lee. Is that crazy?
There's a lot of pages for that Jim Lee Eye for an Eye or whatever the heck that was called, whatever that.
Oh, the Nick Fury.
Yeah,
Yeah, the Nick Fury graphic
yeah.
novel.
But that
Jim Lee's
costume
got a
never
lot
showed
of
up
pages
again.
on.
Yeah, there's
You know,
that cover never, or that costume, the Nick Fury costume never showed up anywhere else. Like I was like, why is anyone drawing that? Because speaking of costumes
Jim
and
Lee,
changes,
and that was written by Greg Wright. That graphic
that's
novel.
right. Yeah, right.
Jim Lee had said years later he still was doing pages of it in the '90s, like doing Wildcats, and he would still do some Punisher pages. And if he ever leaves DC, which is always the rumor he's going to go back and do X-Men, I would love to see him finish that Punisher graphic novel, but like don't redraw anything. Let us see your Punisher from 1989, 90, 92. Right. Like keep not Punisher, Nick Fury. Let us keep seeing your growth or your change as an artist, and then finish it up.
I don't know if he can do it. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think he's so ingrained. He's so like DC ingrained. I'm not sure if he can do it. I don't know. It's not, you know. So we'll see. But yeah, so right now, like I'll have to go in more detail about the collection, or I'll just grab a creator. But it's kind of fun because like I have a Ladron file, right? So I have like of course like Cable and Spider Boy like team up, and then it goes.
Beautiful.
Then I have like the Fantastic Four annual he did with Claremont, and then I have an issue of man, what was it like the Batman? I'm sorry, the Batman Black and White. Like when they did all the Shadows and Light, right? So now all
Yeah.
the thing is it's not special anymore. Kind of like the Justice League Unlimited cards, right? The black and white things are not that special anymore. Batman Black and White's not
No.
special because they did too many of them.
Everyone's done it. Even they've had a
Marvel's
Turtles
now
black,
doing
white, and
it.
green.
Yeah, and that they're okay. Like
yeah,
there's just too many of them. There's just too many of them. But the Marvel did one in the '90s. It was a Batman. It was Batman. I keep saying Batman. God, it was Marvel Shadows and Light, and they had a one shot, and it was a Tony Daniel cover. There's a Blade story in there. I don't know if you know that. There's a Blade story by Ladron in there. But Ladron, I don't know if he knew or he didn't know it wasn't supposed to be colored, so it's very thin. Like that was when he was doing his like Juan Velasco like thin lines. So I'm just like, you're not drawing for black and white, man. Like you're drawing for them to like fluff this up. So it's really not, it's not that good, but it's like cool looking. Then he did the Inhumans.
He was working on a Silver Surfer graphic novel. He's like, I want to be the combination. Like you had the Kirby one and you had the Mobius. I wanted to bring them together in something new with this Silver Surfer graphic novel. But Marvel wouldn't renew his green card, like his work visa.
Oh wow.
And so like I guess he stopped working for Marvel, and that's when he went and did all the Elephant Men stuff with Richard Starkings and Joe Casey.
Wow.
So we lost out on the Silver Surfer graphic novel.
Oh yeah.
Nobody ever brings up the Buscema Silver Surfer graphic novel. Like that's a good one too.
I don't understand. I want to say the Buscema one is in some of the reprints, right? As well as the Keith Pollard one. There is no reprint. I have 3 versions of the Fireside, right? I have a Fireside from a library that I got from Rich from Welcome Back Comics. From that, I wrote to him on Facebook or whatever. I was like, "Hey, can you hold?" Because he had a video. I'm like, "Can you hold that?" And then he forgot to bring it to one show, and he had the next show, and he held it for me. I had it for like $7 or something like that. It's a terrible copy. It's a terrible Fireside copy, but it's from a library, and it's a little brown. But the one that I had that I bought for kind of okay money, I bought it for 40 or $50. Had like water damage. I ended up selling it for 30, 35. But I also have one that they did in the 2000s, which was limited to some weird number, like 470. It was some weird number. It was hardcover. I have that.
Yeah.
And that has like a good intro. Their intro is different than the Fireside. And then I have one that they did in the 90s that has a stamp in this. Do you remember the story? So it has a stamp. It's property of, was it Mark Alessi? Who's the creator of CrossGen?
Yeah, he's the owner, creator
This is from the
of CrossGen.
collection and so it's stamped. And I was like, wow, somehow so somehow that shuffled around, and maybe his wife sold it. I don't know, yeah, so I have a Mark, and I can't sell it now. I'm like, I don't know.
That's a very weird. Like
Yeah,
who? You have a, can you imagine stamping your book property of Marc Leone, property of
but
Rob
see,
Messick?
I want to say that was it Harley Yee. I want to say that back in the day, like when when me Dan Hirsch would explain stuff to me about the industry, like there were some people that it would come from like this, like a Phil Seuling as a person, right? But then he created like basically like New York, like the comic book convention scene, right? And
Right.
created like collectability and direct market, help with direct market. Like there were some people that it came from like specific collections, like not Chuck Rosansky per se, because he became more comics, but there were people that were big. Harley Yee I don't think he's around anymore, but Harley Yee would go to shows and would sell prime real estate comic books, man. Like almost $1 million before Heritage and all that stuff. But I remember going to shows and going, and I want to say the last time I saw Heritage had the Michael Uslan Shining review. Do you know about this? Where he took
Yeah.
the picture and he took white out and he had it. So it's literally in this like jewel case. I have a picture of it somewhere. So it's literally in what's on what year Shining come out? 81, something like that. Whenever that came
Yeah, I'm not
out,
sure.
because somehow, and this guy basically is a millionaire because he caught this weird tiny loophole that the Batman rights for media or whatever movie rights were open to buy, and Michael Wilson bought it right in the like late 70s, and he
Yeah,
just kept around. And every movie that comes out has his name on it because it has to, I think. But he makes
his
money off
his,
all
his
that.
name's on the Penguin TV show.
Right. So he's always in it. But
He-
he took the picture of Nicholson and he took white out and some marker and made a Joker face on the picture of him, like in the when he takes the axe to it and he looks in and says, "Here's Johnny." So he took a picture and he had it. So he's had that forever. So, but seeing that, it's like way artifact. Like that's crazy. But Harley E was at shows and I remember seeing him. Just like really nice, like uh, I don't know if it's Japanese or I'm not sure Japanese or whatever, but like it was just Japanese or Chinese, but and he would like the books that were there. There was a video the other day where it had Nicolas Cage like just kind of rifling through books and it said Nicolas Cage picking up dollar books. And it was Spider-Man 1, X-Men 1, FF1. He just has like them in Mylar just at
he-
this convention. I'm like, like, and I said to the girls, I was like, there's like $3 or $4 million worth. Like, there was like 5 issues. He's like, here, like, can you imagine? I can't
that
imagine.
that's that long legs money.
Oh man, I don't know. Oh, another cat. Oh no, no, kid, no. Okay, I'm trying to make
Yeah,
sure
got to
none
cat
of
proof
that.
that
So
keyboard.
I don't know. I just moved it. Yeah, I don't know. So all right. So I guess we're signing off. We did it. We did it.
Yeah,
We'll see
we did it.
how.
Nice and short.
Nice and short. I don't even know. It's probably 3 hours. I have no idea. So we'll figure out
No,
how we're gonna post it. We'll see. But I say we leave it as is. Leave it. I say, just
yeah,
number one because I have no time to edit it. Number two, I feel like it's
cough,
the only way I'll
cat,
get better.
whatever.
But
Yeah,
I feel like I would imagine. Listen, knowing the comic people that I know, they all talk like this, man. They all just like it's all just like this nightmare, nightmare of tangents, right? Like it's just the
yeah.
way it is. That's just the way it is. But that's what makes it
No,
great. That's what makes that definitely is a dopamine hit that I always get whenever we talk. We talk, And how old are we now, right? So we're old. We're old,
or
but
yeah, I'm 48.
we
You're 47.
right, but we are 30 years old, right? Because I was working at the shop, right, in '94.
Our friendship is 30 years old.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, there's no one I talk to more. Not even my kids. Well, they don't talk to me at all now. But like
You
it's
know,
they're just busy.
they
Nothing
are
more.
busy. We both
But
Mark and I both have teenage girls, and they
yeah,
are busy. These are older though,
yeah,
and twins.
yeah, yeah. I do think it's funny, like the things uh that were important to me that I try to like explain to them, and then sometimes they'll explain stuff back to me, and I'm like, yeah, I gave that to you. You know what I mean? We always talk about that how that's kind of fun. But I have a picture if you remember. I'll have to find it. I had when they were 0, I guess. They were very little. It was yeah, it was the summer of they had a Philly con. Peter Mayhew was there. They had onesies and said, "Who's your daddy?" and had a Darth Vader on the chest. and it has me,
Oh,
and we're
I
right in
think I
front of
remember
Peter
that.
Mayhew, and he's like looking at, and I'm like, look, you're meeting Chewbacca, like, you know what I mean? And then I have a signed picture of a Chewbacca picture, like to the girls, Chewbacca, Peter Mayhew, you know what I mean? So I'm like, you're seeing this, and even one of the pictures I have on my thing is like me with a bootleg copy of an original Star Wars DVD. So I have a 77 cut of a Star Wars from a convention, and I
Right.
have a baby next to my head crying. I think it's Sophia, and I have like the DVD in my hand. I'm like, look, we're watching this. Like I'm like literally like explaining, like, look at this. But I feel like the way that they see things now, and the way that your daughter sees things now, and like storytelling and different things that are, you know, the Transformers movie we just saw, we talked about it. I was like, who's being mentally scarred by this one? The third act. We need to mentally
Yeah.
scar some kids right here, please. You know what I mean? Because we were mentally scarred, and that's just the lore of it. But yeah, it's really fun. So yeah, we're 30, so we're gonna try and do this potentially weekly on Sunday mornings when things are relatively quiet.
Yeah.
Um, and then just kind of run through, news, other things, media, do what we can. So I know this is probably particularly rambly, but signing off. You got anything else?
Yeah. No, but this is what we wanted to do. We wanted
Hmm.
to bring our conversation to the world, and we like to talk about new things, and we like to talk about old things, and we have some in-depth knowledge of comics. We love this stuff. We breathe this stuff, and we just want to inform people of what we know. Hopefully people write and comment. If we got something wrong, let us know, because we
We'll get it wrong.
yeah, sometimes you believe a comic myth, or you don't know how to pronounce the name. You said Chris Bacalo, and I think it's Chris
Yeah.
Picello. But when you only
Bill
read it,
Sienkiewicz.
it's right. Or is it Bill Sienkiewicz, which is what he told me. Um,
I imagine he's probably right.
he might be right. What's funny is I don't think that's right either. I think that's just the way he wants to pronounce it.
Right, right. If you break it apart, I don't think you're right. I think there's other syllables mixed around. That's okay.
Yeah,
Hey, man, it's
that
his
that's
name. He can
that's
do
his
what he
choice.
wants.
Mark Miller, we pronounced it Mark Millar for years until I met him, and he today goes, you know what? I don't care if people call me Mark Millar, because it sounds more hoity-toity. It's more proper.
Right. His
Miller is just
podcast is
just
like what? His podcast is Miller time, but it's Millar time. You know what I mean?
Millar time. Yeah.
So that's okay. That's
So
okay.
so it's fine. Hit us up. Where can people find you? Do people want to find you, or you just want comment?
No, that's fine.
You
I
have
mean,
an
I want.
Instagram. You have a
Yeah,
fun Instagram,
yeah.
don't you?
Yeah, I have my idiosyncratic pulp Instagram where I was for a while, like I would just kind of pick out and do a week of something. Like I did a Mark Texiera week. I did a billion Master Kung Fu posts, so like through Galassi Zek, a ROM one I did for a long time, and then I was trying to do. I'll have to, maybe this will also help me go back to this. I was trying to do a daily Marvel Universe entry because Marvel Universe, but I would also put in GI Joe Order of Battle and put in Transformers Universe. So I was putting in the 80s Marvel technical ones and then include some updates or have, but then I started putting in like Marvel 70s, 60s, 70s handbook with one. So now I don't know, but I'm curious to see, and I was on like day 200 or something. I don't know, and then I just kind of stopped. But I want to try that back again because got
It's
some
fun.
cool art. Yeah, it's some fun. You got some cool art, and yeah, but it's thousands. I'm curious how many literal entries it is when it's done. I don't know. I don't want to know. I can look it up probably. I don't want to know. I just want to kind of keep going through it and then seeing like what it totals to. What day does it stop? I know it's not day anymore, but what number entry does it stop? Because that's probably way intense. So
You know
yeah,
what? Maybe you shouldn't do every single one, because what if it's like, I'll do a page of this for the rest of my life, and then you get to that last page, you're like, I guess it's over.
I guess the move.
It's,
Well, I always have some other like little thing I'm getting into at that time. Or probably something else.
it'll be something. You did Marvel stamps for a while. They were pretty
I
awesome.
did all the Marvel stamps, and then what was funny about that was like a year later, Abrams put out a whole book about it, and I was like,
Would would
and
make
then
your
they
life so much
showed.
easier.
Yeah, I know, but it was fun. It was fun to like scour the internet, like what is this from? Or this was from like a Italian edition of this Captain America book, and it had this face, and it was redrawn by Marie Severin. Like there's a ton of stuff like that isn't real in that. That's what's kind of nuts. When you mentioned what it wasn't called Amazing Spider-Man Annual One, it was called, I think it was King Size Special, right? It wasn't the first Amazing Spider-Man? I think that's what it was called. But I would say every Marvel stamp is a Ditko drawing from that. That has probably the most entries. there's like 15, like everyone you can think of. You know, Doc Ock, Sandman, like anyone, because they were just perfect pinups, perfect Ditko pinups, perfect,
Yeah.
perfect. So that was probably easiest to crimp and make it a Marvel stamp. You know.
The Marvel put out a little hardcover for Eric Larson's Sinister Six, the first one. Actually, they have hardcovers for both his Sinister Six storylines. But the first one they put that Ditko annual in.
Okay.
So it's like a really, and that Eric Larson's Sinister Six story, the first one is what, Return of the Sinister Six?
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing that, no pun intended there, was amazing. It's amazing that they never put the Sinister Six back together from that annual in the early 60s until that storyline in 1990.
Until 90, 89, yeah.
And then 2 years later, when Larson briefly took over McFarlane's Ejectifless Spider-Man, he did Revenge of the Sinister Six, which he wrote. Right. And that's really good.
But, yeah, that's him. That's some good experiment there as almost a super patriot in there. And
you're right.
A lot of interesting, a lot of forward ideas, so that's Savage Dragon. If you could say that Legends of the Dark Knight issue was a Magnolia Hellboy 0, that was probably like Super Patriot -1, -2, -3. So ingrained in that. Really cool. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, we'll have to go through our like early phase. Yeah, we'll have to figure out. We're gonna do segments, so we'll figure out, like, because I want to even see like almost like where are they now with different
there's some interesting stories to be told there, and we know a good amount. Hopefully we'll get to it. I did a comic strip called, if you go on Facebook under Awestruck Comics, I did a comic strip called Frenzy. This character, Angry Walt, it's some pretty funny stuff. It's not always
I like that. So
meant for kids.
I like the gags.
Awestruck
the
Comics
gags are fun.
Yeah, they're gag strips. Nothing
You have that,
too serious.
so you have that Facebook account?
Yes.
Held? Okay. We'll have to see. We have to go on Instagram and grab it before we publish it, see if it's there.
Yes. We should. And maybe we'll grab a Gmail for Awestruck Comics as well.
Yeah.
So by the time this is up, Awestruck Comics on Gmail. If you want to email us,
we'll see.
We'll
see what it is. We'll put look down below. There'll be a bunch of thingies. Right?
Yeah.
Like and subscribe. Right.
So, well, thanks for listening. Thanks for putting up with this ramble.
Yes.
And comics up. Stay upbeat about comics.
That's right. Stay upbeat. All right, I'm going to hit the end.
All right. See ya.